Rhonda, is it possible for me to test sharing the screen just in case one of our items gets pulled up off consent?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. Did it work?
Yes, it sure did. Thank you. Looks good. Hi, Michael.
Good morning, Rhonda.
Rhonda, can you hear me?
I sure can. Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can. There's a little bit of an echo.
Okay, how does that sound now? Is it,
A little better, but you still sound a little, but we can definitely hear you. Sorry.
okay, thank you.
Hi, Melissa.
Good morning.
Great meeting. Good morning, Vice President Ellenberg.
Good morning, Rhonda Schroeder. How are you today?
Wonderful. And how are you on this best day ever?
You stole my line. I am just fine on this best day ever. Thank you.
I just wanted you to know I recognize.
I feel seen.
Good morning, Captain Oberdorfer.
Good morning, all.
Have a great meeting.
Good morning, everyone. This is the clerk with a courtesy announcement that this meeting is now being streamed live on the internet.
Good morning, Dr. Day.
Good morning. How are you?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Cortese. Nice to have you back.
Thank you. Good morning.
And good morning, President Wasserman.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Cortese.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Just fine. Just
Good.
fine.
Good.
That's that looks like the biggest congratulations card I've ever seen.
Thank you. It was quite a nice surprise.
Wow.
Yeah, fun time. Thank you for being here this morning. This was a pleasant surprise I just learned about.
Hey, it's been a long journey together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All the way back to those early Cities Association days. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Supervisor Wasserman, your clerk today is going to be Dave Leon.
All right, Dave.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dave Leon of all three.
Good morning.
For being here, and I hope I did not murder your name too bad.
You did not murder it. You just killed
Recording in progress.
Oh,
No, you actually pronounced it perfectly. Everything is well. No problem.
appreciate you being here.
Of course.
And good morning, Supervisor Semenya.
Boom.
Good
9:30. 9:30. The gang's all here. Let's get it started, Dave.
Good morning, Supervisor Lee,
Good morning, Lee present.
Supervisor Chavez,
Here.
Supervisor Simidian,
Here.
Vice President Ellenberg,
I'm here.
and President Wasserman.
Here as well. Thank you,
sir.
very much. And with that, I'm going to turn to Supervisor Lee to lead us in today's Pledge of Allegiance. All that can stand, please do so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to turn to our Vice President, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It is my honor to introduce my friend and former colleague, California State Senator Dave Cortese. Senator Cortese represents Senate Seat 16, which is comprised of 950,000 residents and encompasses a large portion of Santa Clara County, stretching from Cupertino east to Mount Hamilton and from Los Gatos north to San Jose's Alum Rock District. The cities of Cupertino, Los Gatos, Campbell, Saratoga, Monte Sereno, and the San Jose communities of Willow Glen, Almaden, Evergreen, East San Jose, and downtown are included within the district, along with vast rural expanses of unincorporated areas that extend to the Santa Cruz Mountains and the Stanislaus County border. Before his service at the state, as I expect most of you know, Senator Cortese honorably served the residents of Santa Clara County as the District 3 Supervisor and worked alongside myself and my colleagues here, including our current President of the Board, Supervisor Mike Wasserman. Senator Cortese was a constant voice for the underrepresented, disenfranchised, and all too often unheard members of our community, and his accomplishments are extensive. Senator Cortese is here today to present a resolution to President Wasserman on his decade plus two of work and dedication to the residents of Santa Clara County. It's all yours, Dave.
Thank you very much, Vice President Ellenberg, for a very generous introduction. And of course, I want to pivot immediately to the guest of honor who's still presiding as President of the Board of Supervisors. And this is not only a professional delivery, if you will, or presentation of a Senate resolution, which we in the Senate, particularly including the Santa Clara County delegation, are all too happy to bring forward for Mike Wasserman in the years and years that he has, there it is right there, that he has dedicated himself, he and his wife Kim dedicated themselves to public service. And I would go on and make it a little bit personal, not to make you uncomfortable, Mike, but we go back a long way. And that's what happens when you're committed to public service for a long time, on a personal level and on a professional level. But my first recollection of Mike is when I was assigned to the Santa Clara County Cities Association as a freshman city council member back in 2001 or so, I don't know, right in my first term there. And, I had that impression of Mike Wasserman that so many people have had, including his constituents and the people that have supported him by voting him into office repeatedly, as this is a great guy. He's just a good guy. He's moderate in his comments. He's articulate. He can explain things clearly and concisely, but more importantly, he's just a good guy. And, we make these decisions sometimes as human beings, sometimes quickly. That's somebody that I hope to get to know over a long period of time. And who knew that we would end up serving together, not just in a regional way like that, but ultimately on the Board of Supervisors for so many years together. And, Mike is the only individual I've ever encountered who is able to articulate the exact mission of the county, what it does and what it delivers to its constituents in a short State of the County address. And I'll never forget that. And I'll never be able to replicate it. That's probably why I remember it so well. And it's sort of emblematic of who Mike Wasserman is. Look, let's be efficient, let's be effective, let's serve our constituents, and let's move on to the next issue without animosity, without any bitterness as to which way the vote went. We're all in this together. Let's be collaborative. And Mike, when I was on the Board of Supervisors, I can attest personally that you made it so many times to be able to work professionally with somebody with that kind of an attitude. And then lastly, on a more personal note, Mike probably doesn't even remember this, but I went to him during a time of difficulty in my own family life involving, extended family and some setbacks that really were the kind of thing that you probably could pause and stop and just turn all your attention to and sort of leave the office behind. And I went to Mike because he's people probably don't know this outside of the Board of Supervisors, but he was one of these folks always who, if he had an illness, a flu or something like that, we would have to literally shoo him out, tell him to go home. He would show up and say, I'm going to work through this, even in the most dire circumstances. And of course, those closest to him knew, like we always do with close colleagues, anytime someone in his family had a setback or something like that. And I went to him and I said, Mike, tell me what to do. I'm in one of those life situations where I feel like hitting the pause button. He said, no, you work through it, you process through it, you lead. That's all you can do. And that's what you should do. And it was some of the greatest advice I've ever been given, and probably a pivot point in my entire career at that point, if you want to call this vocation a career. So thank you for that, Mike. On a personal level, I can only imagine how many lives you've touched like that, how many persons you've spoken to and inspired like that, including the hundreds of thousands of constituents in your supervisorial district and those in the city of Los Gatos that you represented there as mayor. So again, the Senate is not only commending you and resolving to do so, but very proud of you. Thank you very much.
Senator Cortese, you took my breath away with those words. I appreciate that. I appreciate your friendship. It was, you're very correct. It was 2002 when we first met. We were representing our cities and then joined together again on the Board of Supervisors. And I wish you the very best and good work in the Senate that you're doing representing all of us. Thank you very much for this. And thank you most for your kind words. I wish you and your family all the best. Thank you, Dave.
Congratulations to you and to Kim, especially.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Thank you, Senator. All right. We are now going to move on to Supervisor Simidian to present our invocator today.
Thank you, President Wasserman, and my thanks to our invocator, who today is Sheikh Alauddin El Bakri from the West Valley Muslim Association, I should just, in addition to welcoming and thanking Sheikh Alauddin, share with you all that the West Valley Muslim Association was founded, back in 2008. It was a small prayer space initially, actually within a Jehovah's Witness church in Saratoga, and WVMA ultimately bought the property a decade later and established the mosque there. They have a second location in Los Gatos, and I am really very pleased, and we are privileged to be able to welcome Sheikh Alauddin El Bakri today to provide the invocation.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor, and I would start in the name of God Almighty Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praises due to God, the one and only, the creator of us all, the most gracious, the most merciful. I ask Almighty God to guide our intentions in this meeting and in every meeting, to guide our thoughts, to guide our words, our actions and reactions. I ask Almighty God to expand our ability to handle challenges and stress. I ask Almighty God to give us the hearts that feel the pain of the people, the minds that enable us to solve their problem, and to give us the energy to serve their needs. I ask Almighty God to give us a strong sense of divine justice that will help us to make decisions that will serve social, economical, political, and spiritual justice in the county of Santa Clara. I ask Almighty God to give us the wisdom needed so that we can be bigger than ourselves, so that we can love and respect those who disagree with us, so that we can learn how to work together for the betterment of our community, in spite of who they are and where they come from or what they believe in. I thank Almighty God for this beautiful meeting with good people, and I ask God to give us some holiness and some goodness so that we can do this job at our best and to make us reach our maximum potential. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Supervisor. With that, we are now going to move on to item number 5, which is announce adjournments in memoriam. And with that, we're going to start off with Supervisor Chavez, followed by Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, colleagues. It is with a heavy heart that we adjourn today's meeting in memory of Beatrice Monique Trotter, who passed away on October 21st, 2022. I want to acknowledge and welcome Beatrice's friends and family who are joining us today, including Charlotte Peterson Tucker, her sister, Christopher Burnett, her son, Lorenzo Gray, her cousin, and Quentin Tucker, her brother-in-law. Thank you very much for joining us to honor Beatrice's memory. Beatrice was introduced to foster parenting as a youth, and she witnessed her mother as a foster parent. She was a great supporter of her mother and her foster siblings. As an adult, she forged a path of her own to help foster children as a resource parent and as a foster parent. Beatrice was initially a foster parent with the Foster Families Agencies before becoming a foster parent with the County of Santa Clara in 2012. She was a caring, strong advocate. Let me just say that again. I see Charlotte there, you know this, for children and youth placed under her care and ensured all necessary services were available for their benefit as she provided a stable and nurturing environment with trauma-informed care. Beatrice worked with West Valley College in Saratoga and Hartnell College in Salinas. She was an instructor for the County of Santa Clara's Resource Family Approval Program, and her firsthand knowledge of being a resource parent was an incredible asset to trainings and gave it that real life feel that foster parents so desperately need. Beatrice was also assisted other resource families to navigate the dependency system and provided respite care. She worked with the Santa Clara County Juvenile Hall, where she became more knowledgeable about ways to help children and youth and would collaborate with social workers to develop strategies to improve services. She worked with birth parents and social workers in support of reunification efforts on behalf of children, youth, and families. Beatrice was a tireless and loving advocate for more than 30 children and youth of Santa Clara County under her care for almost 10 years. She is survived by her sister, Charla, her son, Christopher, and other friends and family and former foster youth who love her. She was so beloved by family, friends, and community. She will be remembered and greatly missed. Charla, welcome. Did you want to say a word or two?
I just wanted to thank everyone for honoring my sister. You said it best. She was a very strong advocate for the children that she served in the county. She was very passionate about getting them the services that they needed, and just providing good care for children that didn't have homes, and even for children that weren't in her home, in and out. She dedicated her life to serving. So I just want to thank you for honoring her. She would be thrilled. So I appreciate it. And my whole family appreciates it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. We now move to Supervisor Lee.
Yes, first of all, thank you, President Wasserman. I'm here also with a very heavy heart to, in honor and memory, to an adjournment today with my friend David Chingwei Wang. David was born on February 8, 1956 in Keelung, Taiwan, and he came to the United States to study back in 1984. Graduating from the World Journalism College in Taiwan and studied at the San Francisco Art Institute, David had a lifelong passion for journalism and communication. Although he was also involved in the high-tech industries, the term reporter is still his favorite and most honorable title, and even at the last moment of his life, he was still doing his duty as the director of the Silicon Valley's interviewing for Singtao Daily. David was a cheerful person, and the combination of career and passion, he always exuded confidence and brilliance when interviewing. David's warm smile, humble tone, professional quality, and gentlemanly attitude of always putting the interviewer in the main position made him a very credible and an important member of a community of the highest integrity. He devoted his life to his reports and broadcasts, and listening to his broadcasting and reading articles to inform millions of Chinese readers of the most accurate and up-to-date information, which of course is the bedrock of our democracy. He also loved photography and was always looking for opportunities to capture that candid moments. So you gotta be careful when David's around because she'll capture something you might not know. And David always had a talent for music and really enjoyed playing the piano and the violin. He was a loving husband and a hands-on father, because no matter how busy he was never absent from his family and his son's education and growth. His work and dedication to his community will truly be missed. And I do believe we have David's beloved wife, Mrs. Lani Chen, and her son have logged on to our meeting. And if they are, would you like to say a few words?
Hi, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for your kind words. Supervisor Lee.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisor Lee. Now I'm going to turn to Supervisor Simitian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I had the sad privilege of attending services over the weekend at Congregation Beth Am for longtime friend Don Way, who passed away last month. Want to share a little bit about Don's personal story, but more just share a couple of long ago anecdotes that I think are quite telling and about just who Don Way was. Don grew up in the East Coast, like a lot of folks. He made his way west, ended up at Stanford, and then withdrew during the Vietnam War to volunteer to serve in combat. And after his service, came back to California, re-enrolled at Stanford, and graduated with honors, and set out for what proved to be a very successful career in business as the CEO and chairman of Thwaites Insurance, which grew appreciably during his tenure. But the two stories I want to share with you are interesting. You might well describe Don as someone who was privileged. He attended Phillips Academy Andover. He, as I say, graduated from Stanford. He was a local business leader. And he was in the 1980s, and this is how I first came to know of him. He was involved in a very active way with a group called the JCs. And they were a group of young business people who were affiliated with a national organization, the National Junior Chamber of Commerce, as it was known. And the JCs were a fairly significant presence in the community. And the Palo Alto chapter and Don ran into an issue, a problem, which was that in the 1980s, it was the national policy of the JCs, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, that only men could be members of the organization. And Don, whose politics was certainly not left-leaning by most descriptions, just thought that was nonsense. That was his exact word, nonsense. And so he and a half dozen of his fellow JCs found what they thought was a workaround, which was that essentially they would have women participate in the organization through a affiliated organization. But the national chapter of the JCs was having none of that. And in the category of you can't make these things up, litigation ensued because the national folks, who I think were out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, said this is a violation of your charter, and we're going to revoke your charter unless you agree to the provisions that exclude women. And the Palo Alto chapter said, I'm not doing that. And Don was among those who led the effort to fight. And colleagues, I should tell you, the case ended up in the United States Supreme Court, where the justices ruled 7-0 that, in fact, women must be admitted as equal and full members of the JCs. If you're asking yourself what happened to the other two members of the court, the answer is they both had to recuse themselves because they were themselves former members of the JCs. And as I say, by I think it was 1984, on a 7-0 vote, the court said, no, we're not going to countenance that. And while it may seem like just an interesting slice of life from back in the day, it was in fact the start of a movement that essentially obliged other service clubs, other service organizations, the ones we all know, the Rotary, the Lions, the Kiwanis, to also open their doors and without regard to gender. And it had national impact. You see this, very straight arrow, button down insurance businessman, and you may incorrectly draw certain inferences about who he is or was. And the truth of the matter is, he thought it was unfair, he thought it was nonsense, and he thought that they ought to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And off they went, and the difference has had a lasting impact as a result. Now, some years after that, the Don Way that I only knew a little bit through community affairs in Palo Alto called and said, hey, can Sylvia and I get together with you for dinner? And I said, well, sure. Didn't really know why, since I didn't know Don that well at the time. I was on the Palo Alto school board, sat down to dinner with Don and Sylvie, had a delightful dinner, and still wondered midway through the meal, what is this all about? And ultimately, they revealed that their oldest of 3 kids was about to start elementary school at Addison Elementary in Palo Alto Unified School District. And they had heard some disconcerting things about the caliber of the education at Addison and wondered as a member of the school board whether I might help them find a way for their youngsters to attend a different elementary school. And I had to look them in the eye and tell them, I can't and won't do that. I hope you understand. But here's the thing I wanted you to know, and I told them quite directly. Addison was at that time a school that needed improvement. The Palo Alto School Board had recognized that and was making an effort to help the school improve. And so I exhorted Don and Sylvie to not only stay with Addison, but to engage with the school community, because they were exactly the kind of engaged and caring parents who the school needed to help take it to the next level. And my promise to them was that we would do our job at the district, at the school board level. And I hope that they would roll up their sleeves and become active parents. Sure enough, Don and Sylvie both became active parents at Addison Elementary School, watched that school become one of the most popular schools in the district with a waiting list. Sylvie was, in fact, the PTA president. But here's the punchline to this long story. As I was leaving the Board of Education in 1991, I was, of course, concerned that good people run. So I picked up the phone and called Don Way, who I had watched do this good work at Addison Elementary School. And I said, Don, I want to encourage you to run for school board. And he laughed out loud and said, absolutely not. And I said, okay, I'll take that as a definite maybe and call you back in 2 weeks. I called him back in 2 weeks and he said, well, actually, I'm thinking about it. And I said, what was it that caused you to reconsider? And he said, well, Sylvie, his wife, had said, you know, if we're sincere in our commitment and we really think we should be contributing to our schools, this is another way we can do that. I can do that. And so he stepped up, he ran, he served 2 full terms, and was widely regarded as someone who had both business expertise, but a real firsthand understanding of the day-to-day challenges that all of our schools were facing at that time. Don passed away at the all too young age of 77 just last month. He was a community leader, he was a business leader, he was a family guy. Our sympathies to Sylvie and to the sons, Nate and Nick and Ted, and to the entire extended family. He is truly an exemplar of a life well lived. And I wanted to share that with you all today. And thank you, colleagues, for the opportunity to adjourn in Don's memory. Thanks so much.
Great memories. Thank you. Thank you. We're now going to move on to item number 6, commendations and proclamations. And before doing so, I'm just going to make this PSA, public service announcement, that after number 6 comes number 7, which is public comment. And anyone wishing to speak about anything not on today's agenda, we ask you to go ahead and register now electronically so we can better manage the meeting when we get to item number 7 in just a few minutes. With that said, I have the honor of starting off with number 6A, which is to present accommodation for James Williams as he receives the International Municipal Lawyers Association's Daniel J. Curtin Jr. Young Public Lawyer Award for his outstanding achievement in representing local government. Whereas James Williams, newly appointed county executive, whereas County Council James R. Williams was awarded the International Municipal Lawyers Association Daniel J. Curtin Jr. Young Public Lawyer Award. This award recognizes a lawyer age 40 or younger who has demonstrated outstanding achievements in representing local government. Whereas as the Daniel J. Curtin Jr. Young Public Lawyer Award seeks to recognize a public law practitioner who has provided outstanding service to the public and who possesses an exemplary reputation in the legal community, the highest of ethical standards, and who revels in maintaining a life that balances a passion for professional excellence with the joy of family and friends. In addition, the award seeks to recognize a person who exhibits qualities of openness and humility, coupled with a sincere concern for the interest of others, including the professional development of newer practitioners. Whereas James' career has been dedicated to local government service from the very start, and it has been marked by a number of exceptional achievements. In James' first year of practice, he delivered oral argument before the California Supreme Court in California Redevelopment Association versus Mata Santos, one of the most consequential taxation cases in California history. The decision resulted in the initiation of a multi-year process to dissolve the state's redevelopment agencies and return billions of dollars each year to local schools and county safety net services. And whereas 5 years later, at the ripe old age of 32, I added that part in, James. James was appointed as county counsel. Within his first 6 months in the position, James initiated the office's national level litigation practice against harmful Trump administration policies, including cases related to immigrant rights, healthcare access, and funding for vital services. James also led the office's nationally leading response to the pandemic and many other significant county initiatives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Santa Clara does hereby honor and commend James Williams upon his receipt of the International Municipal Lawyers Association Daniel J. Curtin Jr. Young Public Lawyer Award. James, do you have a few words you'd like to share?
Thank you, President Wasserman and members of the board. If I could actually just make a couple comments after the presentation of the next two commendations, that would be perfect. Thank you.
All righty. We'll now move on to 6B as in Baker. And this is my opportunity to present a commendation. Where is Melissa Keniolokis?
Good morning, Mike. I'm here.
I'm looking for you. There you are. Keniolokis. All right. I call her Melissa K, and you can all understand why. All right. I want to welcome our lead deputy county counsel, Melissa. Whereas lead deputy county counsel, Melissa Keniolokis, was awarded the International Municipal Lawyers Association's, IMLA, Bradley D. Bailey Assistant City County Attorney Award, which recognizes an attorney who has demonstrated a commitment to the practice of public law, routinely engages in creative problem solving, and has a record of exceptional accomplishments in the practice of public law. Whereas the Brad D. Bailey Assistant City County Attorney Award seeks to recognize a public law practitioner who has provided outstanding service to the public, who possesses an exemplary reputation in the legal community and the highest of ethical standards, and who revels in maintaining a life that balances a passion for professional excellence and the joy of family and friends. Whereas Melissa is one of the lead attorneys for the Office of the County Council's Civil Rights, Torts, and Employment Litigation Team. Over her 20 years of legal practice, which have been devoted entirely to county service, Melissa has amassed an impressive list of contributions to local government jurisprudence. As just one example, in DeComply Mintz versus County of Santa Clara, Melissa successfully obtained a unanimous California Supreme Court opinion holding that to protect local government's sovereign immunity and ensure they have adequate notice of allegations against them, any plaintiff bringing a state court cause of action against a public entity must strictly comply with the procedural claim presentation requirements of the California Government Claims Act. And whereas, in addition to numerous other litigation accomplishments, and they are numerous, Melissa has recently played a central role on the office's COVID-19 litigation team, defending local public health orders to protect the health and safety of the Santa Clara County community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Santa Clara does hereby honor and commend Melissa K. upon her receipt of the International Municipal Lawyers Association Brad D. Bailey Assistant City County Attorney Award. And Melissa, I will now turn to you to say a few words if you wish.
Thank you, President Wasserman. I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had to serve the county and be part of the county council's office. I'm honored to work with just an amazing group of lawyers, and I'd like to thank in particular James Williams, who I know had a lot to do with me getting this award. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues on the Civil Rights, Torts, and Employment Litigation team, who have supported me from my very first day in the office over 21 years ago as an intern fresh out of law school. And I'd also like to thank so many other county employees I've had the privilege of working with over the years, often under really difficult and stressful circumstances of being involved in contentious litigation. So thanks so much for this recognition. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Very well deserved. All right. And now my third one. This is awesome today, honoring these fantastic people. My third one now is where I welcome Lead Deputy County Counsel, Hillary Kerrigan. And Hillary, I'm looking for you on my screen now. There you are. Right on, Hillary. Whereas the Office of the County Council's Child and Family Protection, CFP team, which works with the Department of Family and Children's Services, the DFCS, to prevent child abuse and neglect and to support families who are involved or at risk of becoming involved in the juvenile dependency system. She was awarded the International Municipal Lawyers Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. Please, everybody listening, realize these three people, this is big time stuff. Whereas the award recognizes the CFP's team transformative work in guiding the county's child welfare system toward a more equitable, family-centered model. In recent years, the CFP team has led a re-examination of child welfare practices that have too often caused children to be removed from their parents' care based on factors that correlated more with race or poverty. For example, a parent having contact with the criminal justice system or experiencing homelessness than it did with an immediate safety threat to the child. The CFP team guides social workers in looking solely at the tangible evidence demonstrating danger to a child in each case, and not at any factors that may correlate with poverty and or race or children entering the formal child welfare system locally. Has dropped to a third of the local historical average. And whereas, in addition, the CFP team is supporting DFCS and implementing robust prevention programs that are helping to reduce system involvement while still protecting children. This means that absent an emergency, no child is removed without first holding a facilitated safety planning meeting with the family, where parents cannot safely care for their child, but they can arrange for an appropriate relative or friend to do so. The county will no longer pursue a removal. That's wonderful. Keeping as many children as possible with their families while supportive services are provided is more equitable, more protective of children, and reduces trauma for a family already facing a crisis. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Santa Clara does hereby honor and commend the Office of the County Council's Child and Family Protection team as the recipient of the International Municipal Lawyers Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. Hillary, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Supervisor Wasserman. I'm so grateful to be here representing my wonderful and forward-thinking team who has done all the hard work here. And it's such an exciting time to be in child welfare. And I'm so grateful for the management in the County Council's office that supported us in doing this work. And also the visionary leaders at DFCS who envision a different future for children in our community, and for the hardworking social workers who are actually out there every day with the families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Hillary. And with that, James, I'm turning back to you. You had a few words you wanted to chime in with about these magnificent people and groups.
Thank you so much. And thank you, President Wasserman. Thank you, members of the board, for recognizing the achievements and accomplishments. And obviously these awards speak to the extraordinary work of Melissa and her dedication to the county over many, many years, and her considerable accomplishments and the tremendous work of the County Council's Child and Family Protection Team led by Hillary that has really transformed the work that we do in child dependency. But they also speak to the work of the County Council's office as a whole. And it is an extraordinary honor and privilege to lead a team of over 100 truly dedicated attorneys and many, many, many dozens of support staff who work day in and day out tirelessly to represent this county in court, to work for the interests of this county in all of the different transactions and advice work, and to support problem-solving approaches to the real challenges that we face as a community, as an organization. And I could not be prouder of the true public service that is provided every day by the County Council's office, and the real hard work that our team puts in to work in partnership with this board and under your leadership and with the administration to make truly amazing things happen. So thank you so much for this recognition. And I just want to acknowledge and thank the entire County Council's office for their hard work each and every day.
Thank you. I'll just say, as a lifetime coach, teamwork makes the dream work, and great job to all of you. Thank you all very, very much. With that, I'm going to turn now to item D as in David, and turn to Vice President Ellenberg to present her commendation.
Thank you, President Wasserman. I am happy to do that. I'm also just felling a little bit here about the awards won by our attorneys and the truly transformative work that happens here in our County Council's office. So congratulations to the three on the screens, as well as to the dozens and dozens of attorneys that weren't on the screen today that do tremendous work every day. So with that, I will pivot to the commendation at hand. It is my honor to present a commendation this morning honoring Diane Fisher. Diane served as the executive director for the Jewish Community Relations Council of Silicon Valley for almost 18 years. The Jewish Community Relations Council is an arm of Jewish Silicon Valley, a nonprofit umbrella organization that provides funding to support various endeavors and meet the needs of vulnerable individuals, both locally and globally. The mission of the JCRC is to, quote, teach and apply Jewish values to work toward a more just society and a strong, vibrant Jewish community, end quote. But I have to say that Diane grew the organization far beyond its core purpose. Diane has spent nearly 2 decades engaging with the broader interfaith and secular communities, building bridges and ensuring that the Jewish community shows up in solidarity with other groups that are marginalized or discriminated against, as well as being heard in the fights for social, economic, racial, and religious justice. Diane's contributions are vast and significant. Among them are the following. She created an annual interfaith Passover Seder that brings together hundreds of people of different faiths during Passover each year to discuss important issues impacting all our communities. The Passover theme of release from bondage resonates across racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups, and it has been fascinating to see the allure of the story of the Exodus play a significant role in the stories of nearly all people. She helped form the group Protect Our Community, which has brought together more than 35 faith-based and secular groups in response to hate crimes and attacks that escalated in 2020. She was the founding member of the Silicon Valley Interreligious Council, connecting interfaith leaders across the Silicon Valley. She founded and co-directed the Teen Interfaith Leadership Council, which engages teens in service, faith dialogue, and advocacy actions. There is so much more I cannot possibly squeeze into this moment on today's busy agenda, but I'll conclude with a couple of personal remarks. Before Diane's day, my aunt, Ruth Sporer, served as the executive director of the JCRC. My own family is rooted in the belief that it is critical for the Jewish community to be visible and relevant to the broader faith and secular communities. Anti-Semitism grows in darkness, and when people don't have direct experiences with Jewish people, have Jewish friends, or see them as supportive of broad social issues, it is simply too easy to dismiss us as other or as only self-interested. I'm grateful for my aunt's leadership and have been so proud to see how Diane has grown this critical organization. I've had multiple opportunities to speak to the JCRC Board of Directors and have always been impressed with the degree of commitment they consistently exhibit, not only to supporting our own community, but to ensuring justice, tolerance, and belonging for other marginalized groups. Diane, you have built a strong and deep bench of community activists, and for that I am particularly grateful. I know you are leaving the organization in great hands with Jessica Blitchcock, and I hope you can relax knowing that your legacy will live on. It is my pleasure now to welcome and introduce Diane Fisher.
Very nice.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberg. I am really grateful to you for thinking of me in this moment of my retirement, and to all the supervisors for your kindness in offering this acknowledgement. I'm really very touched, and each of you have really inspired my work over these years. But it's particularly meaningful because I do feel that the county government has been the place where I have felt the most welcome to bring my voice, to represent the Jewish community, and to represent the full network of advocates working to bring greater compassion and justice to our county. I've been honored to work in partnership with so many amazing leaders at the county, going back to Jim McEntee with his work at the Office of Human Relations, with Esther Perales-Diekman and Carla Collins and Julie Ramirez in the Office of Women's Policy. And of course, the staff of many supervisors over the years of the meaningful county sponsorship of the Holocaust remembrance ceremonies. Cleaning out my office, I have mountains of videos and photos and proclamations and thoughtful words saved from those remembrances in the chambers, from some people who are no longer with us, but who were able to share their voice while we still had them, to teach us how to stand up against hate because of your sponsorship. And so many other issues, whether immigrant justice initiatives and hate crime prevention task forces. This is the body where real work happens and where I've been motivated to help community members engage, because I know their voices will really be heard. And I also want to just take a moment to thank so many staff members that I've had the honor of working with, who are really dedicated community service and just the kindest, most supportive partners. Just to mention Tevu Nguyen and Michaela Hillman-Tinscher and Van Lan Trong, and these days Naomi Nakano Matsumoto and Wendy Ho. And I also just want to mention Arcel Bloom, who spearheaded the culturally responsive calendar for county employees and worked with all of our religious communities. So over these 18 years, the Jewish community and many social justice organizations have found partners in the county. So I want to say thank you to Supervisor Ellenberg and to each of the supervisors for this very touching moment of acknowledgement. And for sure, I know that you will find Jessica Blitchcock will now serve as the JCRC director to be counted on as a partner going forward in the work to serve the people in the county of Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Congratulations. Yep. Bye-bye. Thank you, Vice President. With that, Dave, we're going to move on to item number 7. If you can set your timer for one.
Just one real quick second. This is
I'm
Cindy.
sorry, Supervisor Chavez, I didn't see your hand. Go right ahead.
No problem. No problem. I just, I know that all of us on the board have had experiences with Diane, and I just wanted to say how many communities she touched. And just really with such gratitude, Diane, that I think you embody a really important component of what leadership is, and that is that you gathered everybody. There was always room at the table for somebody new, and just very, very kind, generous, and on occasion very fierce, and really appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 7, which is public comment, which is the opportunity for anyone to speak about anything not on today's agenda. So this is not the opportunity to speak on something on consent or on the open. This is on anything not on today's agenda. And Dave, we have a number of speakers. If you'll please set our timer at 1 minute and get us started.
Will do. And just an announcement for those calling in on their phones. When you are asked to unmute, please hit *6 to unmute so you can speak. Our first speaker is Alan Kamara. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good morning.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Alan Kamara. Congratulations, Supervisor Mike Wasserman, on all your service to the county and everything you've done for this county and its citizens. And it's a pleasure working with you. And congratulations, James, and your team for all the awards as well. On behalf of our nurses, I want to call to highlight the county's intention to continue to divide our union. The county is using classification studies as a stalling tactics to divide, create an infight amongst our nurses. To be part of RMPA, we are an independent, exclusive bargaining unit. For you to be on this bargaining unit, you have to be an RN. We ask that the county approve the 10% for all our nurses, all our members. Dr. Smith was incorrect when he called you all that he will do that. That has not been done.
Next speaker is B. Beekman. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the meeting today. Happy December to everyone. Post-election December to everyone. I wanted to offer that, County Board of Supervisors has had a bit of difficulty in deciding a new general manager. Jeff Smith's role, whatever his title is, Dr. Smith's role. I'm talking all fall the importance of the closed meeting agenda process and how you guys need to learn how that has to have a few words, agendas that describe the closed meeting session process. Most Bay Area cities do that in some way. And the VTA, for instance, has a really good way to work on that. It's of openness and accountability. You have to work.
Next, we have someone with a microphone on. Let's check that one moment. Next speaker is Paula. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I am a per diem IC nurse at Valley Medical Center. As a resident and nurse of Santa Clara County, I feel marginalized by this board, whom we have elected and did not make an equitable decision. Excluding the per diem nurses from the 10% raise given to clinical nurses, whom we have identical job description, is unjust and demeaning, as it results in our hourly rate to be less than our counterpart. We're highly experienced nurses who opt out of pension and benefits for an expected higher pay. I have 12 years experience, 6 in the ICU. We feel staffing shortage and most especially support patient safety when a good number of the clinical nurses are new and still lack bedside experience. I urge you to bring back equity to our hospital by giving per diem nurses the same 10% raise. Please do not risk the loss of your experienced bedside staff during a national nursing shortage, as other hospitals paid their per diems a differential of 15 to 25% on top of a clinical nurse base pay.
Next speaker is Colleen Allen. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Colleen Allen. I served in the United States Navy for 8 years as a combat medic, serving in 3 wars. I currently am a critical care staff developer at St. Louis Regional Hospital. Just like our last speaker, I'm just asking for equity. On the last Board of Supervisors meeting, Dr. Smith said, I fully expect to be back in 2 to 3 weeks with additional requests for the board to approve realignments. Come to find out we were never on anything like that. And so they said that we don't even rate the right to have a realignment for any of us per diem, staff developers, infection disease. I'm asking for equity. Please just throw us a bone. Look at everything that we have to offer. Again, like I said, just give our union, our NPA equity 10%, hopefully across the board. Thank you.
Next speaker is a phone caller ending in 861. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Eileen Yanko. I'm a night shift assistant nurse manager at the Santa Clara Valley Medical in the surgical ICU. I've worked for VMC since I graduated in 2005, and this makes it my 17th year in critical care and at VMC. I was a clinical staff nurse for 12 years and 2 years as an ICU staff developer and 3 years as an assistant nurse manager. As an A&M, I can be assigned to the charge nurse or the break relief or both. So I work side by side with my staff to care for critically injured surgical trauma patients, managing injuries ranging from orthopedic, vascular, or traumatic brain injury. We also care for and manage the recovery of patients after open heart surgery. My responsibilities require me to always be at the ready to provide advanced clinical support when the nurse's experience falls short. Additionally, I manage the transition training of ICU.
Next speaker is Gina Shialaba. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Gina, are you
Yes,
there?
can you hear me?
Yes,
can you
go
hear-
ahead.
Okay, good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Gina Shalaba. I am an A&M at the Valley Health Clinic in Tully. I have worked for the county, both inpatient and outpatient, since 1996. The fact that we did not receive the realignment when the clin nurses and extra help RNs has driven a wedge between a group of professionals that have always valued strong teamwork and knowing that each person on that team has their back. Because we are not pushing paper, we are actually saving lives. How one classification of RNs can get a realignment and another not is really unbelievable. I recently hired an RN from El Camino Hospital, and I worked very hard completing an in-grade form for her to get a higher step that I felt she deserved. I was successful in the process. She accepted the job, and a week later, she got the 10% raise as a new employee, making more than me. How does that make sense? Please make this right and stop driving a wedge between the haves and the have-nots of a healthcare system that cares for our most vulnerable.
Next speaker is Laura. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm an assistant nurse manager. Before promoting into this title, I worked as a clinical nurse for 7 years, then decided to go back to school for my master's degree in hopes of advancing my career. I worked as a nurse coordinator, providing bedside education to patients with diabetes, and then promoted into the role of A&M. I never thought that obtaining a higher education and doing a job with more responsibility would result in me being paid less than the nurses that I supervise. I continue to provide direct patient care. I triage, educate, and manage multiple departments. When the charge nurse is sick, I step in and cover. When the inpatient nurse is out, I step in and cover. When the patient needs insulin in our clinics, I step in and administer it. As an A&M, the county gets the best of both worlds, a manager and a nurse. Dr. Jeff Smith told us in the last meeting to not worry, that this would get resolved. Well, I am worried. I have a family to feed. Inflation is out of control. I see no resolution. Instead, I see nurses that feel burnt out and undervalued. I hear about nurses that plan to retire or leave and to go to Stanford and Kaiser where they would make a lot more money. Thank you.
Next speaker is Monica Thompson. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, yes, good morning. My name is Monica and I've worked at Santa Clara Valley Medical now for close to 17 years. And I'm currently an A&M and work with nurses who, with a 10% increase, are making more than me. This is completely unfair considering I have to step in and help nurses at all times and be a resource. On top of that, we are running the unit. It's a busy unit with all of the clerical and other responsibilities that come with assistant nurse manager. I'm really hoping that the Board of Supervisors can see that this is creating a wedge between clin nurses, assistant nurse managers, and the other nurses that did not get the increase. And I'm hoping that they will approve the 10% increase as soon as possible.
Next speaker is Harini Thelevel. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Harini and I'm a student. So I was wondering about the increase of misuse of drugs due to mental health. As a result of drugs being misused, is it possible to make it harder to access certain addicting prescription drugs in order to prevent the habit from starting? And for the people that are already in the cycle of misusing substances, is there a way to have more accessible resources for them to reach out at an affordable cost?
The next speaker is Winnie Nguyen. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Winnie, are you there? I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors, and thank you for having us. My name is Winnie Nguyen. I'm currently a registered nurse, and assistant nurse manager at BMC with over 20 years of critical care bedside nursing experience. What I would like to know as a registered nurse, why I shouldn't step down as an assistant nurse manager to make more money as an individual contributor with my skill and experience as a practicing bedside nurse. I would hope the Board of Registered Nurses to reconsider 10% raise for all of the nurses because we are nurses. Thank you.
And David, before we go to the next speaker,
yes.
I'm going to ask Dr. Jeff Smith to make a comment at this point so that everyone can better understand exactly where things are at right now. Dr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. President. A little bit of clarification, which might be a little complex, so I'll try to explain it, and obviously open for questions. As part of the nurses MOU, which was settled a number of months ago, there was a commitment to do a class study for clinical nurses. There are 3 levels of clinical nurses, 1, 2, 3. That was done as the board saw and approved. There was a recommendation for an increase by 10% for 2 of those classes, 8% for another one. The class study for the psych nurses and for the assistant nurse managers was delivered to the board, to the union just last week, and it does recommend increases. It is up to the union to decide whether they want to meet and confer about that issue or to let it go to the board. We're hopeful from an administrative perspective they recommend it and go to the board so that it would be effective in February. Also, the study regarding nurse practitioners was also delivered to the union last week, and we're hopeful for the same result. So at this point, essentially what we're doing is going through the mandated process of directing or delivering the recommendation to the union, and they have a decision to make about whether they want to meet and confer about it if they think it's too high, too low, or wrong in any other way. And so we're awaiting that. So it's a meet and confer issue at this point. We're hopeful that it will get resolved by the end of December so that we can get it all in effect by February.
Super. Thank you for that clarification of the process. I know there's a lot of steps in that process. Vice President Ellenberg.
Actually, Supervisor Chavez had her hand up first.
That's okay, Susan, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, thank you.
So, Dr. Smith, first, is that consistent with what you said at the previous Board of Supervisors meeting, leading the nurses to think that this would be resolved faster?
Well, I think it is consistent because we have to follow the merit system rules and go to meet and confer if the union disagrees.
So how were we able to do the 10% increases for clinical nurses and not do the same thing for all of the nurses? Why was there an initial breakdown, and why can we not do the same process?
The class study that was asked for initially was just for clinical nurses, which was done, and the union agreed to the 10% and 8% that I mentioned. From a merit system process, once we're making a recommendation for changes in conditions and salary in any classification within a bargaining unit, we have to ask whether the bargaining unit wants to meet and confer about it. And that's where we're at. So the ball is in their court, and we really can't do the meet and confer in public. We have to have a meet and confer if they are unhappy with the results of the class study.
Presuming that the class studies show that every classification merits at least this 10% raise, will they all be retroactive to November 14th when the clinical nurses raise kicked in, if that's the right word?
We'll make it retroactive recommendation to the board. The board has to, after the process of whether or not the union wants to meet and confer about it, we prepare a transmittal for the board to authorize it, and we can prepare it as it is retroactive, yes.
Okay, so as we heard from some of the speakers, we know that there's a lot of anxiety around assurances that this will happen. People may be making spending decisions in reliance on the fact that regardless of their classification, they're going to get a 10% increase and that it will be retroactive to November 14th. Do you anticipate any classification, any group of nurses, and a different underlying question that I think I might want to tease out another time is why they have been divided in a way that hadn't been done before? I think you explained that it's because of the request for the class study specifically for the clinical nurses. But will there be anyone left out at the end of this process?
Well, I can't really say for sure because it depends on what happens at meet and confer. Our union will obviously argue, I think. I mean, it's in their hands at this point. If they want to meet and confer about the recommendation, they can, and they could argue for more or less or anything else regarding those classifications. And we have never really in the past had any decision about all nurses getting exactly the same pay, because there's a difference between a nurse practitioner and a clinical nurse, as well as difference between an assistant nurse manager and a clinical nurse.
And Dr. Smith, I need to interrupt and cut you off so that our attorney, County Counsel James Williams, can speak right now about this issue being discussed. Mr. Williams.
I just wanted to remind the board, this is not an agendized item. So I think it's okay to provide some general information, but
no specifics.
Back and forth on this item is not on the agenda.
Thank you. I'll stop.
Thank you. Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. Based on that, I would just like to make sure that this is agendized for closed session next Monday.
Okay.
Is there a problem with that?
None at all. James?
No.
Thank you.
No, that would be the appropriate place to agendize.
Thank you.
That's what we'll do. Thank you. All right, David, back to you. And I hope that clarified several things for many speakers.
All right, one moment, please, while we get the timer back up.
All righty.
Next speaker is Terrence. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Terrence. I just listened to Jeff Smith and he didn't talk about staff developers classification. I've been a staff developer in the acute psych services for the past 15 years. And I just saw the nurses who we went to school, got a master's, we train the nurses, we work on the floor, we do hands-on training right on the floor during COVID. We were there helping the nurses, filling in when nurses were not there. And I just heard Jeff Smith mention the assistant nurse managers and the nurse practitioners, but we haven't heard about staff developers, nurse coordinators, and the other nurses. So is there a classification for these groups? And if so, when is it happening? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jennifer Hughes. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning, honorable supervisors. My name is Jennifer Hughes. I'm a psychiatric nurse at VMC and the vice president of RMPA. 1,400 nurses in our bargaining unit did not and are not slated to receive the 10% salary increase. This inequity is unacceptable, and it's a slap in the face to our hardworking nurses in the county who have invested in taking care of our community. It's really affecting morale with our nurses, and they feel their employer is not supporting them. After all their hard work and dedication during the pandemic and their continued short staffing and heavy workloads, our nurses feel like their efforts don't matter. With the national nursing shortage crisis and other surrounding hospitals trying to recruit our county nurses, it's imperative that we invest in our own workforce and show the nurses that their hard work and highly skilled education matter. Where do you, Kaiser has a new contract. They have 2,000 nurses they're supposed to hire. Where do you think they're going to get the nurses from VMC if we don't continue to address the salary disparities in our system? I call out to you to do the right thing. We need to stand together now more than ever.
Next speaker is Shannon Ruth. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Shannon, are you there? We're going to ask you to unmute one more time, Shannon. And Shannon is not responding. We'll move on. Next speaker is Maureen Anderson. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Maureen, are you there? Maureen is not responding. We will move on. One moment, please. Next speaker is Jimmy. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Jimmy.
Hi, yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. Hi, Board of Supervisors. I'm Jimmy. I'm an ED nurse at Valley Medical Center. I also am on the board. I just wanted to support our nurses that didn't receive the 10% raise. They are very upset, very unhappy. A lot of them want to leave Valley now because of the inequity this has caused. And that's a lot of experience that we're going to be missing out on. So I just want to voice, I just want to make my voice heard and let you guys know that there is a giant inequity here at BMC in the whole enterprise, and we need to become equal again. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, before we go to the next speaker, Dr. Smith.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about staff developers and per diem nurses.
And let's just make sure we pay attention as far as James's warning. Go ahead.
Well, don't worry, I won't violate anything. The staff developers are included in the issue that's before the board, before the union right now. So again, it's all in the union's hands at this point. And we don't want to negotiate in public or in another place besides at the table. In terms of the extra help per diem nurses, they are in a different classification, which is a broad range classification. So in order to raise their salary, there's no need for a new salary ordinance. All that is required is for administration at the hospital to hire them at 10% higher than they currently are. And we've communicated that to the administration at the hospital. I don't think that all of them have been changed at this point because there are a number of extra help nurses. But for all the other classifications, as I said, it's in the hands of the union at this point. If they want to agree with the class study or have some revisions that that are reasonable, that we think are reasonable, we can get it on the agenda for January and have it effective in February. But we need to get a response back from the union about those two class studies.
Okay, thank you, David.
All right, one moment, please. We'll get the timer back up. Next speaker is Patty Beebe. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank you for a chance to talk. And I'm very interested in keeping all of our nurses, every single person that has spoken. I can't imagine not having them and what would happen to our quality of care. I'm a staff developer. I teach nursing orientation, and we also have a lot of travelers coming in. So any loss of staff we have when we're trying to cover it with travelers, we're paying a lot more money and we're not getting the same quality as our own staff. So it's hard for us to really understand the process. So it's interesting to hear the process because we get one take on it from the union and we get a different take from from Jeff Smith, and it's hard to understand the entire process and how it works. But I urge you all to keep our pay equitable.
Next speaker is NV. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, honorable members of the Board of Supervisors. I am Navjot Sandhu. I'm a staff developer in ambulatory at SVMC with 30 years of experience in nursing. I'm also responsible for training new staff as well as maintaining the clinical competencies of our nurses. While I'm happy for the clinical nurses getting a salary increase, I'm deeply disappointed and feel patent inequality in our system where one group of nurses gets a salary increase and the others in the same bargaining unit do not. This is an urgent matter. Hundreds of us are dismayed for not being recognized for the advanced knowledge degree and certifications that are required for our classification. This decision is projected to have severe implications on retention of nurses, with nurses being driven to bedside or seek employment elsewhere. I hope the board members will uphold equality and provide 10% raise to staff developers and all the remainder classifications in the same bargaining unit. Thank you for giving time to speak.
Thank you.
Next speaker is April Grady. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is April Grady. I am a nurse coordinator in the neonatal ICU, and I am again calling to encourage equitable pay across the board. Our nurse coordinators and staff developers specifically work with our clinical nurses to train them, to keep our clinical nurses up to date on practice changes, new equipment, et cetera. And we work really hard at that. So it's still unbelievable that this is not equitable across the board. Thank you.
Next speaker is Danielle Brooks. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Danielle Brooks, and I'm currently a staff developer at St. Louis Regional Hospital. We're also known as nurse educators. And before promoting to staff developer, I was actually a clinical nurse since 2005 at St. Louis Regional Hospital. And I want to clarify something that Dr. Smith has said. He's generalized that the he's generalized that this situation lies in the union's hands. But I have to tell you, we just had a union meeting, and I am aware of an offer for a 5% increase in, for A&Ms, but there was absolutely no mention of staff developers or nurse coordinators in any kind of, that we've had any kind of study to date, or that we've been offered any kind of a wage increase. So I really think that needs to be clarified. Thank you for listening to us, and I hope you can talk about that amongst yourselves because the staff developers were not included.
Thank you.
Next speaker is James. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is James Guyana. I'm a critical care staff developer at O'Connor Hospital. I've been a nurse for 30 years with dual masters in clinical faculty and healthcare informatics, driven by my passion to care and educating new nurses in transition to work in the critical care. This is an expression of my deep disappointment and displeasure caused by the non-fulfillment of our hopes, our expectations that we were not included on the 10% salary increase, along with the assistant managers. To share one of the many things that we do as a staff developer, recently we just got accredited by Surgical Review Corporation as a Center for Excellence for Minimally Invasive Surgery last Friday, where we had to prepare the whole hospital with sleepless nights, educating the hospital leadership and clinical staff. We've been practicing beneficence in the act of caring, kindness, generosity, benevolence in practice disposition to do good, shaping the future of the nurses. It is but equitable and fair to have us the 10%. Thank you.
Next speaker is Paul Soto. You have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I wanted to talk about the Holocaust that was referenced earlier in the meeting. There was an American Holocaust, and that Holocaust occurred here in Santa Clara County. And when this board talks about social justice, you don't have my permission as a son of campesino from Salsipuedes. You don't have my permission to determine what my history is. I'm also a Native American, registered here, California Mission San Diego. So to arrogate to yourself the ability to articulate the American Holocaust that occurred here in California with the decapitations of Native Americans that was paid out at $5 per head and 25 cents per scalp. And all of that was done by Peter Burnett. And Peter Burnett is buried here in this county. He's buried right there at Mission Santa Clara Cemetery. So we need to start talking about the American California Holocaust that occurred right here in Santa Clara County.
Next speaker is nurse educator. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time today. My name is Sherry Ludia, and I'm a staff developer at VMC. I attended the last Board of Supervisors meeting on October 18th, and to this day, my nurse educator colleagues and I have yet to hear about movement on Dr. Smith's promises in addressing all classifications. Amidst exclusion, my colleagues and I continue to train, mentor, and support our clinical nurses through classes, committee work, quality improvement projects, and promote professional development that impact safe patient care. We love our jobs and our unique ability to promote education and positive change. As such, we ask for your support in recognizing the value we bring to our community of nurses through equitable pay. Thank you.
Next speaker is Letitia Picard. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity to express my overwhelming disappointment in the county's decision not to include me and my fellow staff developers, as well as other unclassified nurses, and the 10% salary increase that the same nurses I worked beside received on November 14th. I provide a high-level education and training to clinical nurses. I implement large-scale hospital initiatives and quality improvement projects. Those are just a few of the tasks that we do. And when the census is busting out of the seams, I'm on the floor providing care to our hospital's most vulnerable patients in the NICU. Please explain why my expertise is not valued by the county and how the board thinks this fair oversight for important nurse leaders like myself and colleagues who were deliberately left out. Please explain and do what's right and give us a 10% increase across. Thank you.
Next speaker is Janet Zarate. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Board, for hearing us today. I appreciate it. I actually am out sick, but I wanted to make an appearance on behalf of my fellow colleagues. I'm the ED staff developer at O'Connor Hospital. We currently see over 200 patients a day. We are the busiest high trafficked ambulance receiving center for the county. And so we do operate on 40% travelers at this time. During COVID, we trained a massive amount of nurses, including DSWs, disaster service workers, who were reclassified into our departments for emergency purposes. This is a big deal. To feel like we are not heard and we're not included creates a huge divide. I really urge the board to consider involving every RN in their title, not necessarily classification, in this reconsideration. Thank you.
Next speaker is Alex Reyes. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm a registered nurse at Fort Search. I was one of those nurses who got the raise, and thank God for that. Inflation is terrible right now. It's affecting everybody when it comes to inflation, and I believe that everybody should have been included in this, because I've been working for Santa Clara Valley Medical Center since '96 with the older nurses, and what I'm seeing right now, it feels like a bittersweet what's going on with this race. It's great, because it helps a whole bunch of us, but at the same time, there's a whole bunch of them that they're being excluded, and it brings this sense of inequality, and that's something that I don't like in our enterprise. That inequality that is felt, and it just feels unfair, and they should be included too. All these A&Ms, staff developers, all of them should come in. And don't forget that, folks, inequality, that's what is flying. Don't forget that these people that were facing the pandemic, they're with us into the unknown. Remember those days, okay? And it's very sad, actually. Bittersweet race. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Lee Y. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Lee, are you there? I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time, Lee.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
My name is Lee Yu. I'm a nurse coordinator and a certified diabetes educator. Nurse coordinators are one of the cornerstones of our diabetes program. Patients referred to diabetes management may be seen and managed by nurse coordinators. Besides providing diabetes educations, we prescribe and titrate medications. We order and interpret lab results. We make referral to podiatry, ophthalmology, and social services. We help develop teaching programs and diabetes protocols. Because of our many contributions, we are recognized by the American Diabetes Association for meeting the national standards for diabetes self-management, education, and support accreditation. Despite functioning at a high level, we feel we are being demoted when we are being excluded in the 10% raise.
Next speaker is Vienne. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a staff developer here at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. I've worked here 14 years to take care of the children of this community, and I now teach nurses who are currently working through a pediatric surge, taking care of the children of this community. My day-to-day involves not only planning future education, but working with other expert nurses, such as clinical nurse specialists, and really working alongside bedside nurses to take care of the children. I am thankful that the board agreed to the 10% raise for clinical nurses. They really deserve it, but I'm thoroughly disappointed that it's been stalled for the rest of the nurses who have been left out of this. Yes, they're still nurses despite their new title, right? They're so important to this community. And historically, whenever clinical nurses have had a pay raise, everyone else has had their pay adjusted around that equitably. So this is really short-sighted, and it sends a message that the board really doesn't view our roles. These little nitpicking things about, oh, this is these are the rules and this is all that was sent to us. It's really stalling everything.
Next speaker is Josie Ruiz. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the previous clarifications and the chance to speak. I work with many of the nurses who have already spoken, and I would like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I am profoundly disappointed in the decision to not include all of the nurses in the pay raise, and this has caused a great deal of anxiety. I have worked for the county for 23 years, 18 of which have been at the bedside. And the last few years has been staff developer in PICU, which Vienne has taken that position. I'm so proud of her. And I've worked as a generalist now with Patty Beebe. I also have 15 years of education focused just on nursing. I have a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degree, and a doctorate, and I am profoundly disappointed that I am not, as a staff developer or any of my other colleagues, included in this pay raise. Thank you for listening.
Next speaker is Ren Tong. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ren Tong. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am a neonatal intensive care assistant nurse manager, and I've been at the county now for 20 years. I've dedicated my 20 years to the county. I've never thought about leaving until now, just because of the inequality. I am so happy for my coworkers who did receive the pay increase, but it's disheartening to me that those who did receive the pay raise actually make the same or more than me being as an A&M. As an A&M, I have the exact same responsibilities. I am charge nurse every single day that I am there. So we don't get protected office time. I am expected to be charged every day, as well as all of my A&M responsibilities. And it's just so disheartening to see those of us that were not included in this raise.
Thank you. I didn't say anything previously. I'll just chime in here now because I can hear all the passion in the voices. But what the intent is there are more changes coming, and we heard they will be retroactive. So I hope those words are being heard by speakers as well. David, please continue.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mark Robb. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My name is Mark. I'm a nurse, clinical nurse per diem. My paycheck says extra help per diem. My badge says clinical nurse. However, I did not receive any raise. I work in the emergency department. I perform charge nurse duties. I work as a trauma charge nurse. I do triage. I work to train new nurses and current nurses in the department. I also work as a vascular access team member and a rapid response team nurse. I would like to clarify Dr. Smith's obfuscation about per diem salaries. he said that they can be adjusted within the range. However, the range is not comparable to other hospitals. It's actually even the max range for per diem nurses is at least 10% below the prevailing wage. I would hope that you would include per diem and all nurses in the system in this raise. I feel it's extremely unfair. I work at Valley because of public health. And
Next speaker is Pamela Wolf. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Hi, I would like to start by saying that the classification of clinical nurse specialist hasn't been brought up or mentioned, but we're under the same classification as the other nurses. My history is that I had been an Army reservist combat medic for 9 years. And my statement is to make that no matter the designation of your degree, other accreditations, we are all baseline nurses. Some other people had mentioned that during the pandemic, we got repurposed to help swab, to help support frontline staff. And I just want to make that statement that that could be possible at any time. All of us are, willing to be reclassified as a military personnel. That is part of your duty. Is whatever you were originally based as. That is your classification. So I want to say this: that we are all nurses. None of us should be excluded from that raise. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Ramel O'Connor. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Ramel, are you there? I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning. I went to Chipotle yesterday and ordered 2 burrito bowls, and my bill was $33. That's a 33% increase from what it cost last year. I also went to Costco and bought 6 items: eggs, bread, milk, cereal, laundry detergent, and coffee, and my bill was $180. That's a 40% increase from what I paid last year. And I am here today in behalf of my colleagues, the assistant nurse managers, the staff developers, the nurse coordinators. These are your leaders during the pandemic who have been dedicated to their jobs and for some decades now, including myself for 23 years. And let's face it, I'm angered that we have to beg for a 10% increase. Do the right thing. You don't want resentful nurses leading your workforce that gives care to our county that we all serve. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kim Mohammed. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Kim, are you there? I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time.
Yes, can you hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors and everyone else, my colleagues out there. I just wanted to let everyone know that I've been with the county more than a decade, and I have served bedside. I followed every unit, and eventually I went to a assistant nurse manager. Before that, all the assistant nurse managers were deployed to open a new site, such as DePaul. So we are frontline. The nurses that you see is our product. So we all fight to against a disparity. How would you tell me now, among us, now we have this much disparity, and in the county more than decades, I haven't seen ever that this much disparity, that some clinical nurses will get raised and some will ignore it, whether they are staff developer or A&M, we are clinical nurse and we serve and we backfill and we are charged and we are bedside.
Next speaker is Elisa Bryan. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors. I actually kind of pivoted what I was intending to say just based on what Jeff Smith mentioned about how this is in the union's hands and it's up to them to agree with a class study. I think there needs to be a little bit more of clarity in the communication. I obviously am planning on looking for employment elsewhere, despite the fact of having worked here since 2006, because I'm per diem and I was not included in the pay raise. But I guess I'm just confused as to what exactly is in the union's hands. I mean, as far as I understood, the union has been trying to get equanimity among all the RN classifications. And I would just also bring up the point about another class study, what the value would be in that, or what that necessarily means, considering that with all due respect, there doesn't need to be a study to know that we're all underpaid. So thank you.
Next speaker is Samantha Davidson. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Samantha Davidson. I'm an assistant nurse manager at St. Louis Hospital. In my role, I supervise 120 to 150 nurses and CNAs. I have advanced certification in my specialty, and I'm working towards my master's in nursing. My duties include not only helping the bedside with direct patient care, but also ensuring that our staff is in the best situation possible to provide safe patient care. We recently hired a per diem nurse that makes a significant amount more than I do as her manager. I'm always available to staff, and they call me and come to me at all hours of the night and day for concerns regarding the unit and patient care. My job never stops. I am the only A&M on a 54-bed and growing unit. I worked my way up to this position over my last 16 years working in healthcare, and now I'm questioning my decisions as there seems to be no incentive to take on the massive amount of additional work, stress, responsibility, and time away from my family and my 7-year-old daughter. I plead that you reconsider this decision before we lose many great nurse leaders from the county. And I know that there was mentioned by Jeff Smith, but as far as I know, it's only 5%. So not enough. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tina Leong. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Tina Leong, and I'm a staff developer for the Med-Surg department at VMC. I've been in my position for about a year now while I'm working on my master's degree. Prior to being a staff developer, I worked as a bedside nurse in a medical oncology department for 20 years. Being excluded from the wage increase due to my classification is disappointing because I know the hard work it takes to support the nurses at the bedside. Personally, it felt like a punishment for pursuing professional growth. Staff developers are responsible for training new nurses and maintaining current nurses' competencies. Our offices are actually on the nursing units that we are readily available if somebody has questions or if somebody needs hands-on assistance. We are very much involved in a lot of committees, QI projects, various task forces. We take part in policy updates and reviews. I hope that you are hearing us. We are asking for wage increase for all nursing classifications.
Next speaker is Diane Vandepol. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. This is
Let's come back to Diane.
Okay, 1 moment. I'm going to mute Diane. Diane, if you could put your hand back up, we'll come back to you. Next speaker is Joy Boleyn. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Joy, we're asking you to unmute one more time. And Joy is not responding. 1 moment, please. Next speaker is Shannon Ruth. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Shannon Ruth. I'm the association representative for RMPA, and I just feel like I need to clarify a few things. RMPA has received 2 classification studies, which we've concurred with both. The first one was for the clinical nurses who received an increase November 14th. The second one was for the psychiatric nurses, and we've concurred with that. And that includes a 5% increase for the assistant nurse managers. To date, we haven't received anything for the staff developers, the nurse coordinators, the infection control nurses, the clinical nurse specialists, or the per diem nurses. The other thing is we did ask for retroactive pay for the psychiatric nurses and the assistant nurse managers, and labor relations said no. So that's the update of where all of our bargaining unit members are today. Thank you.
We're going to go back to Diane Vandepol. I'm going to ask you to unmute. You have 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm a clinical nurse specialist in the NICU, and I just want to re-emphasize everything everyone else has said, that this is just so unfair and just discriminating against people that have gone ahead and gotten advanced degrees and taken on leadership roles. We do everything that the nurses do. We have the same degrees. We have advanced degrees, and we have to do the same jobs. We have to be on a moment's notice, go out and actually do the patient care just like the nurses do. So it just doesn't seem right that we are not considered the same equitable in this pay raise. So I would really emphasize that we really want to have that equity within our union and that you would consider giving us this raise. Thank you.
Next speaker is Clarice Nunois. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Clarice? Can I ask you to unmute one more time? Okay, they are not responding. We'll move on. Next speaker is Marcella. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Marcella,
Hello, can you hear me?
go ahead, please.
Okay. I am calling on behalf of the staff coordinators and all the other rest of the staff that did not get included. My passion has been working for Valley Medical since I graduated. I've been there for 16 years. I work in the pediatric ICU. The last 4 years, I became a nurse coordinator, and I've had to step up with this respiratory surge and do patient care. I've always been doing patient care. I chart on the patients. I work in the pediatric sedation unit, which is a highly qualified position that it requires experience. And I actually am very demoralized, very sad that we were not included in this. I have a lot of experience taking care of children who are sedated, it's a very risky procedure for them. And it requires a lot of us who have experience to work in this unit. It makes me want to leave the county, even though my heart is there. I'm very saddened, and please consider the.
Next speaker is Catherine Hedges. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Catherine Hedges, and I'm not speaking as a member of my organization. I stand with the nurses. I don't think they're being treated fairly at all. And I want to complain about the disability accommodations at this meeting. Until just a few minutes ago, the transcript and the captioning was not for the Board of Supervisors meeting. It was for continuing education on computer security. I tried contacting the city clerk. I tried contacting and I couldn't get through. I tried contacting them finally through my supervisor's office, and they assured her, oh, the captions are just a little bit garbled because the captioner can't always hear the speaker. No, that is not what was happening. It was very clearly on a totally different subject than what anybody at BOS was talking about. And it's finally gone back. It's finally started picking up.
Next speaker is a caller ending in 8441. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Caller ending in 8441. Okay, that person is not responding. We will move on. One moment, please. Next speaker is Noel Asana. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Hi, I am a staff developer here, and I'm just going to echo what all of my colleagues have said. We love our job. We love to support the nurses. We're there when they need us. Our nurses are needing so much support from us, and we're always there. And I think that with the last 2 years and the county's approach on equity, it is very sad and hypocritical, to say the least, that we are being excluded. I'm not sure what the big difference is between registered nurses and clinical nurses. When it comes to our work, we're in there and we're all working towards patient outcomes. And I really would like for the county to reconsider this and not constantly say it's in the hands of the union. This has historically never been the case. The county started this, and we're begging for you to reconsider and have that raise go across all registered nurses. Thank you.
Next speaker is Itasha Yamamoto. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Itasha, and I just want to let you know that I am a single mom with 2 girls. And I've been I was at Kaiser for 20 years as a registered nurse, and coming over to the county for 12 years. I work as hard as anywhere. I like to stay within the county because of the customer, the patients that I manage. And I just want to let you know that it is unfair. We all are registered nurse, and we should be able to get paid about the same. And it is not right to say that, for me to be a staff developer here, I have to have good experience in clinical nurse to be able to teach, train the staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go back to Clarice Moi. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead. Try one more time and ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Clara Ngwa, and I currently work at O'Connor Hospital in neonatal intensive care. I have 20 years of experience in pediatrics, and just recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the county was literally begging for pediatric nurses to go over and work in the pediatric unit over at Valley Medical because they currently have a crisis with a lot of pediatrics sick with RSV and flu. But it's so unfair to think that my coworkers were working exactly at the same level, but they're getting paid more than me as a per diem. That is very unfair. It's very disheartening. I love my job. I love what I do. And so please, please reconsider being fair. Reconsider giving the 10% across the board. Thank you.
Next speaker is Angela Huang. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you for
Angela,
the opportunity. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I am a nurse coordinator at Valley Medical Center in the neonatal intensive care unit. While I appreciate Dr. Smith's attempt to clarify the necessary processes to review the races for the remaining 1,400 of us, I would like to point out the fact that the message is still one of division between non-clinical nurses and clinical nurses. Non-clinical nurses are the pillars that lead, support, and educate and mentor nurses in this entire healthcare system. While the county has discussed classification study for A&M and staff educators, there hasn't been any commitment made to nurse coordinators. We manage the county's informatics structure, quality improvement, risk management, homeless programs, high-risk patient education. Many of us were mobilized as disaster workers to lead community testing vaccination teams during the acute phases of the COVID pandemic. Myself can flex as a senior nurse when the units are short-staffed. We are not advocating just for nurses, educators.
Next speaker is P. Montez. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, I would like to thank Dr. Smith for his words. However, from what I understand, the per diem broad range is based on a merit and number of years experience to match our counterpart clinical nurse pay scale on the original contract, which is no longer the case when the per diem are not given the same realignment pay to keep that broad range comparable to the clinical nurses pay. Their realignment pay is supposed to close the gap in the industry. Please do not use the current pay system to ignore the underpayment and the inequity in this hospital. The 10% should be given across the board for all nurses without exclusion. Thank you.
Next speaker is Maureen Anderson. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maureen Anderson. I have 25 years experience in the NICU. I have worked at O'Connor for 18 years. When we went over to the county, I took a $10 an hour pay cut. And I stayed at O'Connor because I love O'Connor and then the unit we had built here, and I believed that we could be the best NICU. I have taken on charge nurse role and preceptor role to help train new nurses. I do not get extra compensation for that because I'm a per diem nurse. I understand that Dr. Smith said that the realignment was going to be reconsidered, but I did not hear that was for per diem nurses. I do the same work as my coworkers. I'm part of committees here, and I feel like we should all be treated equal. I feel like all RNs should be given the 10% increase. Thank you.
David, if we can turn to Dr. Smith for a minute, please, and then continue.
Certainly.
I guess I just want to clarify that, we can't really negotiate contracts in public. Let me show you what we're dealing with here. These are the can you see that?
Yes, we can.
These are the classifications that are represented by CNA. They generally do different things. They are all RNs, but they do different jobs. When we do classification studies, we don't do classification studies based on your credentials. We do it based on the work that you're doing. clinical nurse 1, 2, 3. We've dealt with clinical psychiatric nurses. We're dealing with the nurse coordinators, nurse practitioners, assistant nurse managers is at the table. Same with registered anesthesiologist or anesthetic nurses. But the fact of the matter is that because these are different jobs, the market is different for them. For example, our current nurse practitioners make as much as the doctors at the lower level. That's a problem, and that's not consistent with the market. Per diem, as I mentioned, is a broad range and is mostly determined by administration at the department level. So the fundamental issue is we cannot negotiate in public. We have to negotiate at the table, and the nurses union is certainly welcome to bring up any subject and all of the subjects that they brought up here in public at the table, but we got to get at the table.
Thank you. David.
One moment, please, while we stop Dr. Smith's screen. We'll get our timer back up. Next speaker is RS Staff Developer. You have 1 minute to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. The clinical nurses deserve every bit of the 10 increase, but as clinical nurses ourselves who work hard to become staff developers, yet still working in various roles whenever and wherever, we have an equally important role and deserve the same wage. It's not like we are not listening to what was said, but at this time, a classification study is not needed to figure out the inequality and disparity. It's just a mere delay. So please, just look into it and no further delays. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And that concludes our requests to speak.
Thank you, David. We'll now move on to item number 8, which is the consent calendar. David, please read what we have currently published.
All right. I also have an oral summary that I will read after the consent calendar list.
Okay.
We have a request from Vice President Ellenberg to add item number 16 to the consent calendar. Item number 16 is to receive a report from the Behavioral Health Services Department relating to the utilization and efficacy of the brief jail mental health screening tool. We have a request from Vice President Ellenberg and Supervisor Lee to add item number 18 to the consent calendar. Item number 18 is to consider recommendations relating to support of African and African Ancestry Health and Heritage Month, Binational Health Week, and other culturally focused health activities. We have a request from Supervisor Simidian to add item number 21 to the consent calendar and to approve possible action A. Item number 21 is to consider recommendations relating to the request from the Board of Directors for the Guadalupe Coyote Resource Conservation District, or GCRCD, to change the district name to North Santa Clara Resource Conservation District. Possible action A is to adopt a resolution approving the GCRCD name change to the North Santa Clara Resource Conservation District and direct the clerk of the board to forward certified copies of the resolution to the GCRCD Board of Directors and the State Board of Equalization. We have a request from President Wasserman, Vice President Ellenberg, and Supervisor Lee to add item number 25 to the consent calendar. Item number 25 is to receive a report relating to funding options for a one-time allocation of $500,000 for additional training for fire personnel to acquire the driving skills necessary for Type 6 and Type 3 wildland engines and wildfire tool use, and annual funding of $800,000 commencing on July 1st, 2023 for the expansion of the Central Fire Protection District Fire Fuels Crew. We have a request from administration to hold item number 26 to December 13th, 2022. Item number 26 is to receive a report relating to the implementation of a Board of Supervisors constituent relationship management system and associated timelines, staffing needs, costs, and funding sources. We have a request from administration to hold item number 27 to January 10th, 2023. Item number 27 is to receive a report relating to expansion of Universal Development Screening Initiative, including progress at Valley Health Center Tully and further expansion recommendations. We have a request from administration to hold item number 28 to date uncertain. Item number 28 is to receive a report relating to efforts to collaborate with the Environmental Protection Agency regarding childhood lead poisoning prevention. We have a request from Vice President Ellenberg to hold item number 36 to date uncertain. Item number 36 is to adopt a resolution delegating authority to the county executive or designee relating to California Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal, or CalAIM, and associated initiatives for period December 6, 2022 through December 31st, 2026, following approval by County Council as to form and legality and approval by the Office of the County Executive. That concludes the consent calendar update, and now we have an oral summary to read into the record. An oral summary of changes to compensation or benefits for certain local agency executives. Ordinance number NS-20.22.05 was approved on first reading on November 15th, 2022, but will not be finally approved until it is approved for a second reading, agendized to occur at today's meeting under item 95. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, the following is an oral summary of the positions for which the proposed salary adjustments are required to be disclosed. NS-20.22.05 provides for a 1.5 general wage, general wage increase to the salary ranges for County Council, County Executive, and Public Defender, effective on December 12, 2022. The new biweekly range for the County Council position is $14,368.16 to $15,095.20. The new biweekly range for the County Executive position is $14,151.84 to $15,639.11. The new biweekly range for the Public Defender position is $12,652.68 to $13,886.59. And that concludes my list.
Thank you, David. A very clean consent calendar we have today. I'll turn to Supervisor Chavez first.
Thank you, colleagues. I did have just one thing I wanted to put on the record for two items. One is item 64. This is the opioid settlement delegation. And first, I wanted to say thank you to the staff for doing such an amazing job at being part of the movement to hold these companies accountable for their role in the opioid crisis. And County Council just did amazing work. This agreement obviously will make sure that funds flow through the state to local governments. And that's important as we're clearly bearing the brunt of the cost of the crisis. The question I just wanted to affirm on the record was that this action would delegate authority to our staff to make sure the money comes at a local level, but that there would be an opportunity for the community to weigh in on how funds could be expended to address fentanyl and other impacts of opioids, including the fentanyl working group.
Thank you.
I think that goes to James.
This delegation of authority is to receive the money, not with respect to how it's spent by the county.
So then for Dr. Smith and colleagues, just to make sure we're being transparent, I am requesting that the expenditure plan come back to the full board.
Thank you.
As part of this action. Thank you.
The expenditure plan will come back as part of the budget.
So, thank you, President Wasserman. What I would like to request is that it go through a committee, but prior to budget, and that committee could either be Health and Hospital or Children's, Families, Seniors, whichever, or even Public Safety and Justice. I would leave that up to the staff to determine where they think the most appropriate location would be for that. And then my second item is on item, let me look, I apologize, colleagues. Item 25, and this was a request from Supervisor Lee and myself to make sure that we had the fire support and resources necessary to be ready for the next wildfire season. So first of all, I do want to say a very big thank you to the staff for working so hard and making sure that we're doing outreach. I'm really grateful about the outreach to educate folks about wildfire preparedness. So thank you. I know we have one tomorrow, December 7th, that starts at 6 in our very own board chambers. Or you can join on Zoom. So thank you to staff for that. What I'm concerned about is that I appreciate that we're going to move a little bit more money into the program for wildfire preparedness. But I just want to say, colleagues, I feel like one of the reasons that we got lucky this fire season, we're going yet into another year that is, of a drought that is only going to make all of this much, much worse each coming year. And so what I want to just say to Dr. Smith is that and to Chief Kurtkow that I am very interested in making sure that we have a separate report out as part of the mid-year budget to affirm that we're doing everything we can to be prepared for the upcoming wildfire season. I see that we have an opportunity for a minor expansion in crews. I'm concerned about that being minor. Appreciate that this money will do some good work, but I am, I remain concerned. So I would like to leave it on consent with the request that we have a separate discussion as part of mid-year about how we're dealing with wildfire preparedness. Those are my requests, colleagues.
Thank you. Vice President Ellenberg.
Thank you very much. In addition to the changes that I requested prior to the meeting, I do want to put 36 back on consent, and I'm going to offer some comments on that and just a few other items, please. Item 16 is the report on the brief jail mental health screening tool. My expectation back in March of 2021 and asking for this follow-up report was that the screening process would be applied for all people entering the jail. That's clear now that Custody Health owns the screening process during booking, and this report reflects only a subsequent phase of assessment for those individuals who are flagged by Custody Health or other justice partners and then referred to behavioral health. I'm interested in a full picture of the processes and the data from both Custody Health and behavioral health. In my opinion, the most central questions are what proportion of the total number of people entering jail are identified as having some mental health issue, what proportion of those identified with need are connected to care. That is partially answered in this report. And among those identified those with identified mental health needs, what proportion are cycling through jail multiple times a year? So I'd like to direct that this report be approved on consent today and updated with input from both Custody Health and behavioral health to reflect the data on the three questions that I just put forward for fiscal 2022 and report back to Public Safety and Justice in early 2023. And my PSJC aide can reach out to both Dr. Day and Dr. Terrell to schedule. Item 18 is the support for African Ancestry Health and Heritage Month and other culturally focused health events. I just want to appreciate the work of staff to turn this item around quickly and develop an approach that's supportive of the needs of our community partners for their ongoing work to promote the health of our diverse residents. Item 21, I'd like to keep on the regular agenda and hear briefly so that I can make a comment regarding the proposed name change. Item 27, the report on the Universal Developmental Screening Initiative is being held by administration to the January 10th board meeting. Consistent with my comment at CFSC in November, I want to confirm that we are moving forward with the transfer of the previously directed $600,000 to support the community clinic partners through First Five, so that they can proceed with the cohort activities. It's my understanding that the contract will be on the board agenda at the next meeting on December 13th. I appreciate the responsive action by staff and look forward to seeing that contract next week. If there is any issue with that or the plan is not to bring it to next week's meeting, please reach out to my office as soon as possible to discuss. Item 36 is a proposed delegation of authority for the CALA AIM contracts. I had asked to hold this delegation of authority, but I'm putting it back on consent following confirmation from staff that this DOA is only for revenue agreements so that the county, to the county so that we can take advantage of the new CALA AIM funding opportunities as they arise, often with rapidly changing state timelines. But given the very broad scope of CALA AIM, I think it is important for the board, ideally through the Health and Hospital Committee, to maintain ongoing oversight of the funding opportunities and implementation to assure that the county is maximizing resources available to support our residents. I know that CALA AIM has been a frequent topic of discussion at HHC, and I would appreciate review by that committee and recommendations from Supervisors Simidian and Lee regarding CALA AIM implementation, reporting, performance metrics, and revenues. So through the chair to Supervisor Simidian, would you be open to taking CALA AIM monitoring up at a future HHC meeting and proposing some appropriate mechanisms or schedule of reporting?
Supervisor.
Happy to accommodate that request through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you so much. Along similar lines, item 64 is the delegation of authority to county council to enter into the opioid settlement agreements. Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for your comments. I absolutely agree with you. I appreciate the need to act quickly to accept the agreements. A DOA seems appropriate for acceptance of terms and funds, but I support Supervisor Chavez's direction that any agreements executed be noticed to the board through an off agenda, or if necessary, a confidential memo, and that a report on expected revenues, plans to receive and hold these funds, and a plan for the programming of the settlement funds be brought back. My preference, you named 3 other committees. My preference would be that they come back to FGOC in early 2023, if that is acceptable to Supervisor Lee as chair of FGOC, and if Supervisor Chavez doesn't have a concern with them going to that committee, directing to both of my colleagues through the chair.
He's nodding his head yes. And Supervisor Chavez?
Yeah, and I would just add that I do think they should go through a policy committee. And so I would say yes to FGOC, and then also to Children's Family Seniors.
Deal. Thank you. Finally, item 70 is a contract for the sheriff's office to continue to provide security in the trial courts. I know that staffing the positions for this contract has been an issue that has impacted court operations in the past. So I would be interested in getting an update from administration and the sheriff's office on the status of the court security staffing plan, either at this Thursday's PSJC meeting, when we receive an update on staffing in the sheriff's office, or if that notice is not sufficient, at the January Public Safety and Justice meeting. And that is what I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Smith, your comment before I turn to Supervisor Lee.
I just wanted to confirm what I thought was Supervisor Ellenberg's question about the delegation related to CalAIM. Indeed, it is only for revenue agreements, because those revenue agreements have to be signed at various crazy times by the state. So we need to have a delegation, but certainly we'll bring any revenue agreement and or recommendation for expenditure to the subcommittee. So I'm probably just restating what Supervisor Ellenberg said.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad for the confirmation, and we are on the same page there. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, President Wasserman. Regarding consent calendar on item number 16, I would be fine with leaving on consent. But I would like to also want to state the following, that I certainly agree with Supervisor Ellenberg's comments on this, and that we aim to move toward a more mental health focused approach to justice. And certainly would like to request an off-agenda report with comparison on what other facilities actually use as this screening tools, and the challenges based on the changing of the intake form away from a yes or no. And what the current state questionnaire is using by the state, and to something that will better expedite people receiving the correct care and staying out of the secured jail facility and into mental health facility. As we have seen, unfortunate things have happened when people with mental health disorders who may not be currently presenting symptoms are placed in our jails. So I just want to add that on 16. Item number 21, I believe Supervisor Ellenberg mentioned it, but I certainly would like to hear it on the name change. And then on item number 25, I'm also fine with leaving on consent. And I want to specifically thank Supervisor Chavez for her leadership in devoting the resources in strengthening our wildfire preparedness. The funds and training to operate the fire apparatus and the engines is so crucial. We certainly have been fortunate this past year, but we definitely need to get ready now for the next fire season, which in 2023, which we're very likely to be getting earlier and longer these days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Chavez, is your hand up intentionally, or was that left over?
It was intentional to actually to follow up on Supervisor Ellenberg made some very good points, as did Supervisor Lee, to item 16. And I would just like to add one question to also be answered by staff, and if this could be done off agenda to all board members. Can jail or custody staff access behavioral health records, including diagnosis and treatment plans, from our county's behavioral health electronic medical record system not HealthLink, when someone is booked and or jailed to ensure treatment continuity? And if we could just get that question, written response to all board members would be great.
Super. Thank you very much. All right, hands are down there. David, I'm going to turn to you. Let's let our one speaker speak for 2 minutes.
All right, one moment, please. Next speaker is a phone caller, Galaxy 813 5G. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking. Caller from the Galaxy phone. I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time. And they are not responding. We have one more speaker. One moment. Next speaker is Alan Kamara. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon or good morning, Board of Supervisor. I just want to jump in and clarify something. Dr. Smith, as the county executive, just called our union CNA. We found that very disrespectful and unacceptable, and we request that Dr. Smith come back to the public and call us what we are. We are Registered Nurses Professional Association, and we are not CNA. Dr. Smith is on the record communicating with CNA to undermine our union. And for the county executive to come here and call our independent exclusive bargaining unit CNA is unacceptable. I find that very disrespectful, and I want a clarification from him.
Thank you, Alan.
That concludes our request to speak.
Okay, with that said, I will look for a motion regarding our consent calendar.
Move approval.
Changes. Was that from Supervisor Lee?
No, it was from Supervisor Ellenberg.
Supervisor Ellenberg. Thank you. Vice President motion.
Second, Supervisor Chavez.
Chavez. And we have Dr. Smith's hand up before we vote. Go ahead.
Yes, I just sent an email to Alan and the group apologizing for my misspeak. I obviously know that we're represented by RMPA.
Gotcha.
And I'm sorry that I misspoke.
Thank
No offense intended.
Understood. Thank you. All right. And I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez.
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian.
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes.
And President Wasserman.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much. All right. That was item number 8. We're now going to item number 9. And I'm going to turn to Supervisor Simidian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we have had the opportunity previously to take note of the extraordinary contributions of Kitty Monahan, so I will not revisit her lifetime of good works. I think the referral is entirely clear, or the ledge file from staff in response to the referral is entirely clear. So I will simply move approval of the recommended action.
I'll second. Thank you. I miss Kitty, absolutely. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Roll call vote, please, Dave.
Mr. President.
Oh, excuse me, Dave, before you do a roll call.
Yes.
Nice try doing the roll call, Dave. But before that, we have to open the public hearing and receive testimony.
Well, I'm glad you caught me, Mr. President. Thank you.
Absolutely. I got to keep you in line. So we don't have any members of the public, so I will close the public hearing. And we have a motion now to adopt the resolution waiving the Board of Supervisors policy 7.5.2 and naming Alameda's Creek Bridge the Kathleen Kitty Monahan Bridge. Motion by Simidian, second by Wasserman. And I'm optimistic for the rest of the game. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez.
Honored to say aye.
Supervisor Simidian.
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes, with pleasure.
And President Wasserman.
Yes, as well. And Dave, don't get disheartened. You've got a future in this business.
I'll do my best, sir.
All right, good. We are now going to move on to item number 11. And item number 11 is to receive and consider nominations for the board president and vice president for the calendar year 2023. And as the current president and chair, and the person with the microphone at the moment, it is my honor to make a nomination for next year's president to be the current vice president, Susan Ellenberg. And that is my motion.
Second, Chavez.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Now we're going to come back for VP.
Supervisor Lee,
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez,
Yes.
Supervisor Semidion,
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg,
Yes.
and President Wasserman.
Yes, as well. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our current Vice President, our President Pro Tem, and ask if she wishes to make a motion regarding her Vice President.
I absolutely do. And I'm going to say a few more words than you did, Supervisor Wasserman. And let me just start by saying that leadership centered in service to others is what really makes our county successful in fulfilling its mission. And building a cohesive team that's moving in the same direction and understands the role of the county and the issues that our communities face is really paramount. I've had the privilege of working with Supervisor Otto Lee since he joined the Board of Supervisors in 2020. His partnership in raising awareness of mental health and substance use disorders as a public health crisis has been critical, as has his continuing advocacy to ensure that we are building, contracting for, or otherwise obtaining crucial beds and facilities at the quickest clip possible. Together, we've been working to ensure that our county provides the resources and tools when and where they are needed by community members, and we have made some important strides toward closing those service gaps. Supervisor Lee's passion for serving our residents who are experiencing homelessness is unflagging. He is an innovative thinker with a deep understanding of the logistics required to get things done. I also admire his desire to build on the work in which our county is engaged to promote operational sustainability as well as general broader climate sustainability. He has been a tireless advocate and champion for the 3rd District, as well as a great partner and colleague to all of us on the board. So as we ready ourselves for another year of service, it is my honor and pleasure to nominate Supervisor Otto Lee as our next Vice President on the Board of Supervisors. And I would ask for a second.
Happy to second that.
Oh,
Okay. Wonderful. Let's have a roll call vote on that.
Supervisor Lee,
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez,
yes.
Supervisor Semidion. We'll come back. Vice President Ellenberg,
Yes.
President Wasserman,
Yes.
and one more time for Supervisor Semidion. Okay, he is currently absent. Thank you.
Aye.
He's back.
Forgive
there
me,
is.
I'm clicking madly. My apologies.
We have an aye vote from Supervisor Semidion. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Yes, and I think that's the first time in my career where someone who's on his first year, or first time, I should say, not first year, which is only going to be a few more weeks, and I can't call you Rook anymore, becomes the new Vice President. Supervisor Lee, your hand is raised.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for the honor and very, very kind and complimentary things that Supervisor Ellenberg has just bestowed on me. And I was actually, and Supervisor Wasserman, you beat me to it. I was going to nominate her myself, and I was just going to say a couple of kind things for her, but it's like kind of off the cycle. But I just want to say that, you know, I've been really honored to be serving with the entire board here. In this case, with our President Pro Temp Ellenberg, as her leadership really reflects a commitment for making our county a safe community for everybody. Being a champion for our county's families and children, advocating for creation for Office of Children and Families Policy, and the hiring of our first Chief Children's Officer alongside with Supervisor Chavez's work. And we've been great partners in doing so many work, especially on behavioral health, to the forefront of our discussions, and calling us and the administration to act with this urgency to address this public health crisis for our in-house and the behavioral health issues. And I just want to say I'm very deeply honored to be observing to see the thoughtfulness of the myriad of issues that the board jurisdiction is masterful of. And I know the future President Ellenberg will demonstrate that same level of thoughtfulness in leading our board. So thank you.
Good deal. All right. With that, we're going to move on. That was, no, we need I'm sorry, we need a vote.
We took a vote on that one, Mr. President.
On Supervisor Lee. Okay, I knew I divided it into 2 votes. Good. So that's done for item 11. We now move on to item 12, receive report from county executive. Oh, and for the clerk's office and everybody else, what my intention is to do is that we will adjourn at 12:15 for a 45-minute lunch and then come back to our typical 1 o'clock COVID report from Dr. Cody and the Public Health Department. And with that, I turn to our Dr. Smith, County Executive.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Really have only two things to talk about today. One is good, the other one's bad. So I'll start with the bad news. As you know, we've been spending quite a bit of time looking at our budget for the next few years. Obviously, we'll come to the board with a mid-year that readjusts this fiscal year, which will be a little challenging. And next fiscal year, we're foreseeing the ability sort of by the skin of our teeth to balance, because we see new eventualities going on, particularly the announcement from the state that they're in a $25 billion deficit position, which we expect in the the May revise to be worse. So that'll be a negative for the 23-24 fiscal year. And we've already anticipated, based on property tax levels, that 24-25 will be problematic. So we'll be looking in our budget this year for the recommendations for 23-24 to find reductions that are available without doing damage to services or personnel. But we feel strongly that we're going to have to get prepped for a downturn in the economy related to the inflationary issues and the question about what's going to happen at the state level. I've explained to many people in the past that state funding is reliant upon capital gains tax. And for those of you who are in the stock market, you'll know that capital gains are beginning to drop significantly. That's a major problem for the state, and the state subventions to counties are expected to decrease at the same time. So that's the bad news. The good news is that you can expect in the middle of this month to get a memo from me that will be going out to all employees, reemphasizing that we strongly recommend masking in the county properties, but not requiring it or mandating the masking. You'll find out later on at 1 o'clock that we're seeing an upsurge in the virus, but because we have a well vaccinated employee population, we feel that we can eliminate the mandate, although we strongly recommend people continue to mask. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? We've got one member of the, we don't, our member of the public is no longer there. Vice President Ellenberg.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Can you also confirm that we will be meeting back in chambers beginning in January?
The clerk of the board is planning to meet back in chambers in January. There, you might ask her the details, but my understanding is there are some technical problems with doing the mixed meeting, both virtual and in person. They're thinking that they'll have them resolved by our first meeting in January. But I expect there'll be some rough issues every once in a while we get the technology straightened out. I don't know if Tiffany's on, or maybe Dave can comment.
Tiffany's here. Hi,
Yes,
Tiffany.
good morning. Tiffany
Madam
Lanier.
Clerk.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So yes, Chief Executive Officer Smith is absolutely correct. We are planning to return to in-person meetings in January. And of course, we are continuing looking at our equipment to make sure that it is running properly. And yes, we're looking forward to being back in chambers.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that from both of you. Certainly, there are examples of other boards and supervisors and city councils and school boards who have long been back and hopefully have ironed out a lot of the bumps in the hybrid meetings. So we have the fortunate opportunity, I think, to learn from any struggles that other entities have had and be able to start strongly. But thank you very much, both Tiffany and Dr. Smith.
Thank you for that good news, Dr. Smith. Now we turn to James Williams, County Council.
There were no reportable actions taken at the December 5th, 2022 closed session meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you for that report. We now turn to item number 14, which was held from November 15th.
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes.
Before we leave the county council's
Yes.
report, I wonder if I might just make a brief comment, sir.
Please.
Mr. Williams, I just wanted to add my congratulations and kudos to you and your team for the recognition that we noted earlier in the meeting. I think a lot of the work that council's office does is largely invisible to the public, but those of us who serve on the board and who serve in a range of operational positions come to understand over time just how essential the work is. And certainly working with your office and your team have come to really appreciate the high caliber of the work that we now routinely expect. I say we routinely expect it, but I don't want to take it for granted. And it's for that reason I wanted to just chime in and add one more thank you and shout out for the work of your department. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Smitty.
And thank you, Supervisor Simidian, for those comments.
Thank you. And with that, we can move on to item number 14, which was held from November 15, 2022. And the recommended action is to waive board policy 2.2 and appoint the presumptive sheriff-elect, Bob Johnson, to fill the vacancy in the office of the sheriff, contingent upon certification of official election results. And I'm happy to make that motion. Supervisor Simidian, your hand is up. Your hand is down. I'm happy.
Second it.
Supervisor Lee, you second it. And
Yes.
if it's all right, we'll go from here to our members of the public wishing to speak. David, let me see what we've got on numbers of people speaking. Let's go for 2 minutes each for the first 5. And if it goes beyond that, we'll go down to 1 minute each. Go right ahead.
Understood. All right, one moment. Next speaker is Catherine Hedges. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, I'm not speaking for any of my organizations, but I had my hand up to speak on the masking issue and it was taken down. I understand that the county staff are well vaccinated. This is excellent, but the newest strains of the virus are still not very well prevented by the vaccines, and we should be encouraging people to mask as much as possible and not be gathering. COVID rates are up. The reason we get new variants is because people are going around getting COVID and the virus adapts, the virus evolves, and it can't do that if it's not spreading, but people keep spreading it, and the county should be more careful than it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And we don't have public speakers during county council and county executive report. We do have coming up at 1 o'clock the public health report on COVID, but you just spoke now, Catherine, about that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Next speaker, please, David.
Thank you. Next speaker is Aram James. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Good morning. So I know Robert Johnson. He was the police chief in Palo Alto. He was kind enough to come to a couple of debates that were sponsored by a number of organizations, including one that I belong to, Coalition for Justice and Accountability. I'm sure all of you have recently seen a whole series of emails and threads about concerns that only raised to the level of allegations at this point. I think, though, that there's no rush to put Robert Johnson into that position until he's officially sworn in January, which will give the community more time to look at some of the concerns that have been raised recently about the time that Robert Johnson spent in Southern California. The allegations, I'm not going to repeat them today because I don't think it's necessary, but you've all seen the threads. I think they're really, really important issues. They raise some serious allegations. I know that there's been a number of people in the community, including, I think, Bill James from the one of the Democratic clubs in the county, that said it thought that we should sit down with the Board of Supervisors and also other people that have some, very strong concerns about whether it's appropriate to put Bob Johnson in as our sheriff before the election is certified. Some of the allegations, again, and I say they're allegations only at this point, go back to the time that when Robert Johnson was with the Sheriff's Department in Los Angeles and Palmdale and other parts of the desert area there. And I think we should take these concerns extremely seriously from the community before you make an early appointment. Let's wait till January and give the community more time to put together facts regarding Robert Johnson's time in Southern California. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, he was publicly elected, and my motion is contingent upon certification of official election results. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Sheriff Transparency Group. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm commenting as a community member and, as Senator Cortez mentioned, as one of those unheard voices who should be heard. And I'm a person of color. And on behalf of our Sheriff's Transparency Group, which is a newly developed collective of growing community members, we decided to organize after it was discovered that there were many issues brought individually to our attention. A written comment was submitted, and although it has a lot of information, it is supported by links that direct you to the facts that support much of the information. There's ongoing inquiry with members of our group who are actively working on requesting additional information to support any of the allegations or information being presented. Therefore, I'm objecting to waiving Board Policy 2.2 to appoint the sheriff-elect to immediately fill that vacancy. As a representative of our group, it is at my request that the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors review this information and appoint a committee to investigate the claims and the information submitted in the written comments before considering waiving Board Policy 2.2. These are serious claims that, for reason of time, were not presented to the public before the election. However, because the sheriff-elect has not been vetted with regards to the information and the public has not had a chance to hold him to answer to questions regarding the issue, we are asking the Board of Supervisors to do so. The sheriff-elect previous experience should not be considered for competence as the Santa Clara County Sheriff. Due to the mass public outcry for transparency, integrity, and suitability, it is important to keep in perspective that this outweighs someone's competency. There are several critical issues to review and consider before public outcry occurs. Please consider the main issues.
Next speaker is Melissa. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, great, thanks. My name is Melissa and I am a Santa Clara County resident and a system impacted family member. And I am also speaking about the allegations against this newly elected sheriff. And I'll just go ahead and say it that the allegations are that he is part of this Green Reapers deputy game at the Lennox station in LA. So I would just like for that to be investigated. Our loved ones who are incarcerated deserve better. They deserve to be treated without corruption involved in where they have to live, and not have to live in cruel and inhumane conditions as well. That is brought forth with these types of people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Bob Nunez. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Bob Nunez, president of the NAACP San Jose Silicon Valley chapter branch. I'm here supporting the waiving of your policies and making the appointment. I think that all of it, it's incumbent upon all of us to look at persons we're voting for in these elections, and to come at the last minute now, it just strikes me as a bit odd, but I do think that we all had opportunities to look into the candidates. We made our selection. I support the person that is currently being posed for this appointment until he is sworn in or certified. So we have looked into the allegations ourselves. I see no reason not to appoint Bob Johnson as the interim until he is sworn in with the election. So we are supporting the position before the Board of Supervisors today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our request to speak.
And thank you, David. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. If there's no other, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, thank you very much, President Wasserman. I just want to make a quick comment regarding this vote is that we are not here choosing who the sheriff's going to be. The voters have casted the vote to choose the new sheriff for Santa Clara County, and currently we do not have an elected sheriff. Upon the county's registrar of voters' official election certification, it is our responsibility to get the vacancy filled. There's a lot of healing to repair the distractions that need to happen in the sheriff's office, and the sheriff-elect should be given the opportunity to start that healing now. The healing will require a lot of listening and intentional engagement with our community, and this is just the first step in getting back that trust that has been lost over the years. And I encourage the sheriff-elect to hold community forums and meet with community leaders throughout the county as soon as possible. With these listening sessions, we hope to increase transparency and regain the trust of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to add a little clarification to my motion, Supervisor Lee, and that's actually putting in the name. So my motion will be to waive Board Policy 2.2 and appoint the presumptive sheriff-elect, Robert Johnson, to fill the vacancy in the office of the sheriff, contingent upon certification of official election results. Are you okay seconding that, Supervisor Lee?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. We've got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Dave.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez.
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian.
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg.
Yes.
President Wasserman.
Yes, as well. Thank you very much. And I think rather than rush through something else in the next 9 minutes, that we'll just have a little longer lunch today, if that's okay with the board members.
Supervisor Wasserman?
Yes.
If you would like, and it would not be inconvenient for other parties, I would be prepared to make a motion on item 23, which is the surveillance matters associated with camera deployment at the Muriel Wright Center.
Second.
Now, 23, I need to grab my consent calendar. Perhaps I wrote down the wrong number. I had number 23 put on consent by Supervisor Lee and approved in the consent calendar. Is that correct, David?
Let me check my notes here one moment. I don't believe so. I have 25 and 26. I don't see 23 in here.
Huh.
And the reason I would be disinclined to think that is because the surveillance ordinance specifically requires that we take action off consent.
Okay, no, very, very true. I've got it here and I have no idea why. Okay, so 23, thank you for that motion and getting a little more work done before we adjourn for lunch. We have a motion for that approval on 23. I'm happy to second it. Any other discussion by supervisors?
I think I seconded it already, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Chavez. I was scrambling for my consent calendar. Motion by Simidian, second by Chavez. No other questions. David, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez,
Yes.
Supervisor Semidion,
Hi.
Vice President Ellenberg,
Yes.
and President Wasserman.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Does anyone else have any other agenda item they think can be handled in 5 minutes? If not, we'll move on. I see nobody. All right, let's.
21 perhaps can be handled very quickly. That's the name change to the
Yes.
Conservation District. Is that all
Yes.
right?
The motion, yeah, the motion was by Semidion for consent, and you asked to make a comment. Please go ahead, Vice President.
I did, thank you. I pulled it off just because the Santa Clara name was confusing to me. In fact, I thought it referenced initially the city of Santa Clara. So some of it is in my district, some of it isn't. So, and I know that we can't change the name ourselves. So the recommendation I would like to make is that we send this back to the governing body with the request that they consider the name change just to add the name county, Santa Clara County. I think that makes it crisper and easier to identify what area is represented.
All right. Is that a motion that you were making?
So that would be my motion to send it back to the governing body to ask them to consider Santa Clara County as a name.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I've got
If I can actually add something.
Supervisor Lee, and I'm going to turn now to our county counsel, Mr. James Williams.
Since the publication of this item, the district actually took action to also forward a resolution with the alternative name, including the word county. So actually the board today has 3 possible actions it could take. It could approve the name North Santa Clara County Resource Conservation District as is the district's preference. It could alternatively today just go ahead and approve North Santa Clara County Resource Conservation District and forward that on to the state, or it could reject both of them and send it back to the district. But I just wanted the board to know that the district took that action so that there'd be no delay. If the board wished to add county, it's still the district's preference, as I understand the correspondence, to not include the word county, but the district did adopt that as an alternative name. So that could move forward today.
Oh, good.
I think since they gave us that option, I will amend my motion to direct approval of the name with county in it, please.
And Supervisor Lee, there's still a second. Now Supervisor Semidion.
Thank you. In the category of things I didn't think we were going to end up chatting this much about, this item is perhaps at the top of the list. I will be a no vote if we move forward on the motion. I think it's important that we hear one of the sentences that we just heard from Mr. Williams clearly, which is that he has in fact received the correspondence from the district saying that they still prefer the name that they proposed. They would not like, repeat, not like to go with Santa Clara County. I am prepared to honor their request. I would have been perfectly fine if they just left the name the way it was, frankly, but if this is the path we're on, I am prepared to support their original request, their original decision. And as I understand from what we just heard from Mr. Williams, it continues to be their desire to call it the Santa Clara, not Santa Clara County district. And I will just point out, arguably, calling it Santa Clara County is even more confusing or misleading because the fact of the matter is the district boundaries, which I'm looking at on a map, cover the east and cover the west, but they don't cover the north. So I think just a quick look at the map, and forgive my efforts here, but if you take a look at the map, you'll see that that big white space, which is up against the north part of the county, the area we call North County, is not actually in the green area, which is the district. So I'm going to urge a no vote, and I think we can all agree that whatever the outcome, good work can and will be done. But I wanted to give it one last pitch. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and colleagues.
Thank you. And David, would you please recognize our one speaker?
Certainly. One moment, please, while we get the timer up. Next speaker is Susan Hare. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead. Susan, are you there? I'm going to ask you to unmute one more time. And Susan is not responding.
Oh, I'm responding. Hi.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. This is Susan Hare. I am the current president of the board of the Guadalupe Coyote Resource Conservation District. I would be happy to answer any of your questions on behalf of the board of directors. I'm asking that you adopt a resolution today, and we would be content with either name. There are pros and cons either way, but the main pro is that the current name is confusing to our constituents and to our marketing efforts and our outreach efforts. It's particularly confusing to those people who have English as a second language, because we end up discussing why we are even talking about conservation when they think watershed, and we're saying, no, it also includes soil and water. So if the only question is about whether to add the word county, I'll give you the quick pros, which Susan Ellenberg already, I think, articulated. The one con might be that we then are seen as a county agency and not an independent special district. Regarding North Santa Clara, I think East-West Santa Clara County doesn't really work. Loma Prieta has the South County. We do have the North County. Loma Prieta Resource Conservation District has supported our name change. So we felt that was very, very important that our fellow RCD in the county supports us. So I'm going to reserve my 23 seconds if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Paula Quintero. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paula Quintero. I'm one of the directors at the GCRCD. And as a Spanish-speaking member, I try to do outreach personally, and it's been very difficult to try to explain this to Spanish-speaking constituents and explain the work that we're doing. We feel the name is a little exclusionary and really focuses on the Guadalupe Coyote area, and that's not the work that we're doing. Especially our agenda and focus is really changed as we're trying to mitigate and help with climate change and a lot of social and environmental issues that we're really trying to help move forward. And we feel like that having a better name would be so much more helpful to reach out to some of these folks. And again, as a Spanish speaker, when I'm trying to translate and explain this, as Susan mentioned, we end up talking about that versus what the work that we're really trying to do. And we are really, really kindly asking you to please consider our name change. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Landman. You have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rick Landman. I'm past president of the Guadalupe Coyote Resource Conservation District and currently a lame duck board member of the district. The trend for the other RCDs across our state is to drop the word county. For example, the San Mateo RCD is known as just that. Even though there's a city of San Mateo and a county of San Mateo, they are just the San Mateo RCD. The same is true for the Napa Art Resource Conservation District, where Napa is both a city and a county, but they've just gone to Napa RCD. So this trend is happening statewide, and we were just trying to be compliant with the same approach. And I agree with and appreciate the comments by Supervisors Ellenberg and Samidi in both. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And that concludes our speakers.
Thank you, Supervisor Smidian and Vice President Ellenberg.
Well, let me try this as a friendly amendment, and if not, I'll offer a substitute motion. Any chance after listening to folks, we could get an amendment to delete the word county and go with the original suggestion, Supervisor Ellenberg?
Yeah, what I was actually going to do was pull that motion, and I just want to briefly say why. This for me was not a hill to die on. It was something that I felt would be more clear. And as the district supervisor representing the city of Santa Clara, that was my focus. But Susan Hare said the magic words of this is very, very important. And when it's very, very important to someone, and I am just trying to dip a toe in, I am happy to defer to the group. And I also appreciated Rick's comments about what the norm is. So, this isn't something that should take so much of our time. I am happy to adopt your friendly amendment to keep the word county out of it, and we will just focus on clarity when and if confusion arises.
Thank you. And I think the benefit, I'm going to take yes for an answer and say thank you as well. But I think the other benefit that hasn't been much emphasized is any agency or organization that has the word county in it, people end up thinking it's us. There was passing mention of that. I know my office and I get questions all the time about the County Office of Education.
Yep.
And I have to say, no, totally different governmental entity. We get questions all the time about the Housing Authority because it's the Housing Authority of Santa Clara County, same challenge. So I think I'll stop talking while there's a favorable sentiment and say thank you again. I'll be an aye vote on the motion as amended by the maker, presumably with the consent of the seconder.
Thank you. So we have the amended motion. We have the second by Lee. We've heard from the public. Dave, roll call vote.
Supervisor Lee,
Aye.
Supervisor Chavez,
Yes.
Supervisor Simidian,
Aye.
Vice President Ellenberg,
Yes.
President Wasserman.
Yes. All right, we are recessing for lunch. We'll reconvene at 1. Dave, we will come back and start with number 10. See you all in a few. All right.
Recording stopped.